All right, follow this, it's practical, follow this. What will happen is you will get to this point where, let's say that you identify with winning, okay? You identify with, you're this big winner, okay? What will happen is that energy and dopamine that you get from winning, okay, this is abstract, but it's practical, okay? Okay, let me broaden out even further as I go down this path. Think about a heroin junkie, okay? Heroin junkie, shooting up heroin, right? At a certain point, the addiction to the heroin becomes so strong that it subsumes their will. Does everybody understand that? They no longer have the will to stop it, okay? What would happen, thought experiment time, what would happen if the heroin junkie could unleash a hit of heroin by a thought? By a thought. What's going to happen? All the time. It would become a flywheel, okay? And the thought would go, and it'd begin to spin, and what would happen is eventually they would just be like that, and they would basically, in effect, be dead. Okay, their soul is snuffed out. That's all they are, permanent. Because what would happen is the synaptic pathways, which form the more that you think about them, would go like that, and energetically, at their energy body level, which is a more like woo-woo subjective way of thinking about it, would connect to the heroin to the point where they just can't get out of it. That basically even happens even in just base level addiction. But imagine if you could do that from a thought. You didn't need to find a vein, in the Starbucks, right? Under the black light to try to stop you, right? You didn't even need to find a vein. You just have a thought, boom! So what happens is if you identify with, say, you being a winner, you will start to create, not as direct as just a thought, but you'll start to create these flywheels where you can't see reality correctly anymore because you need to keep putting people down. Like, you'll see people that are doing this. They're like, they'll be talking, and out of nowhere, they start trashing someone, just out of nowhere. Like, just these random bashing, right? They're just like, so anyway, I think this and this, that guy sucks. So anyway, I think this and this, they suck. Anyway, I think this and this, I'm the man, right? And it's like this loop, right? It's this loop that's running. And anybody who doesn't feed their frame, like, you'll see it. If you meet somebody like that, and you don't feed their frame, they will actually vanish you out of their reality. That could be a good thing in some ways because you have a frame of how you expect to be treated, so there's actually value there. There's actually something to be learned of value there, but it also means that they're limited in what they can understand. Why not just have the ability to hold a frame that you're awesome without having to do that, right? Otherwise, you're not in your discernment. So that's what's going on in effect. So somebody who's a hustler, for example, I'm hustling. What if they find an easier way to get to their goals? Well, if the energy is running as a flywheel, then what's happened is now the tail is wagging the dog. Repeat that after me. Tail is wagging the dog, okay? It's like, it's putting the cart before the horse, et cetera, et cetera. So, this tail that's supposed to be a function of the dog is wagging the actual dog. So what happens is that when your ego or your physical self takes over, it actually creates a parasitic entity on the mind. And what winds up happening is that you're unable to see reality correctly anymore. So it's limiting what you can even perceive. You can't even perceive reality correctly anymore because you can only see reality through your frame. That's it. And your will is subsumed because the parasite is actually running your will. So what happens is that this happens on a larger collective grand scale. And then what happens, and this is where it gets sick, okay, sick, is that what do we know about the ego? What do we know about the physical self? Well, what do we see, in an ocean documentary? What do we see in a nature documentary? What are the animals doing to each other? Killing. You ever seen Instagrams like Nature is Metal? Like, not just the Discovery Channel, the real one, where you see them eat each other. Like they'll show you on like Instagram, like Nature is Metal. Like, the one animal goes up and bites the other animal, and like it shows their guts hanging out of their body as like their guts are spilling open, and they're like, ooh, like it's like it's disgusting. Look, it's nature, so it's beautiful by default because it's nature. But it's almost like as if humans had like wielding some sword and we're just like and like cutting each other, and like that's like what we're all doing. It's insane what animals do to each other, but we're animals. So basically, without that higher light that's been turned on, and if you go into the pure physical, and I know about this because I know people like this, it gets to the point that you are so transactional. Say the word transactional. It gets to the point that you're so transactional that you can't see the humanity in people anymore. And so what happens is that it actually unleashes a sort of a sociopathy. Okay, it unleashes a sort of a sociopathy. And so this is why when we're purely identified in the physical, while human beings do have the capacity to create alliances and we have the capacity for empathy, and tribal empathy and so on and so forth, a lot of what happens is that we go into this transactional mode. And so within that transactional mode, if that takes over, okay, if that begins to run people, that energy is in effect the energy of death. It's the energy of taking and it's the energy of death. It's a taking energy and a death-oriented energy, okay? Now here's where it gets crazy. Once the person, if you are in that belief set, you will begin to see the world as a win-lose. You will begin to see the world as, for you to win, somebody else has to lose. From a perspective and awareness of your core essence, different things open up to you. Okay? Different things open up to you. So what winds up happening is that you actually wind up tapping into a higher energy. What happens is that you wind up finding other solutions that are win-win. The energy of creation, here's how you can think about it. Think of it like a Windows screensaver, okay? The energy of life. It's playful, it's giving, it's abundant, it's win-win, it's adding value. It's the energy of creation itself. And we as human beings are receptors and transmitters of that energy if we choose. That seed of who we are. You're not God. You are not. I am not. But we have a spark of that inside of us. Every human being in the world has a spark of that inside of us. For some of us, that can be so squished down through trauma that a person could become sociopathic, NPD, sociopathy, psychopathy, that there's a high chance they can probably not come back from that. It's dark, beyond dark, beyond dark, beyond dark. And it's actually worth beginning to recognize the shark eyes and the demeanor of people that are stuck in that mode. And it's very sad, and they're in their own personal hell. And if you look at people like that, many of them are very intelligent, very hardcore go-getters, but they are so warped in how they see the world. Many of them even see the world at this high level, hyper-intelligent, hyper-sharp, but there's a couple little things about them that they have so warped, and their need to preserve dopamine, and where they get their sense of self from, and so on and so forth. It's very, very dark. And that energy, when it gets momentum, begins to take over. And it takes people over at a subtle level. And that energy often goes into people that have huge amounts of control. So the energy of death is an energy of control. The energy of spiritual expansion is the energy of release. Control versus release. Okay, so low energy is dense, win-lose, taker, rigid, hard, us versus them, heavy. Okay, and then you're kind of fighting through that. The energy of life is expansive, light, giving, loving, win-win. But what has to be understood is that somebody in that lower state, here's what they're going to say. They will rightfully quote the nature documentary and say, look, life is competition. Why are you talking about these abstractions? Look at life in front of you. The animals are killing each other. Go to a bar or club. Maybe somebody's with their significant other, but if you have higher value, you make out with them because your value's higher, and that person rationalizes it, which I've done. We won't get into that. So, okay, and then some. A tip of a large iceberg that I discovered in my early 20s that shocked me. And what scared me about it was the rationalization, terrified me, and still kind of does. But, okay, so it's one of these things where, you see that. You see the degree of rationalization, the degree to which people, like you could have people in your company, you have a rough month, and they're running off there like rats from a sinking ship. But the sad part about it is they're not going to be like, it was a great company and I learned a lot, but, I'm just doing my own things. Got a little hectic over there. It's a little much for me. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, this person was bad. I didn't abandon them. They abandoned me, and they're horrible. It's like this rationalization in the human mind that is so unconscious and sick. And when I see people doing it, I feel so bad for them. And I've seen a ton of this stuff. And we do this. It's called an RAS flip, reticular activation system flip, right? There's the full picture of what we focus on. When we like someone, we have a halo effect. And then when we flip and they're not to our DNA's advantage anymore, we focus on the negative to justify it. And we rewrite history. We reframe, rewrite history. You ever have a breakup where, your ex, you could do no wrong, and then you break up and they hate you, and they're like, well, this one time, 3 months ago, I was at Dunkin' Donuts and you were late and I felt devalued, and you're like, baby, I love you, why? And they're like, no, that's basically our whole relationship in a nutshell, is Dunkin' Donuts, right? Like the one time, that's our whole relationship. And you're like, I love you, why? And because they have maybe found someone higher value than you, and they can't admit that they're just ditching you, and so they're like, no, Dunkin' Donuts, Dunkin' Donuts. You know, and you're just like, what was this? Like, could I have a refund for the 3 years we spent together? Could I have a refund? Like, if I knew this was gonna end like that, all these shared experiences, the emotions, I just wouldn't have done it. Could I refund that? No. You evil little donut dunker. So, right? And that's what humans do. That's what you do. That's what you do. Everybody does it. So, so that's why also it's, the quote in the Bible, right? Don't judge the chip in your brother's eye when you have the plank in your own eyes. Okay, that has to be forgiven. But what happens is, here's the main key. Huge key right here, like Rosetta Stone to this. When you're connected to the energy of life, you have more energy. When you're watching me now, am I losing energy or gaining energy from this talk? What are you seeing in front of you? Okay, so am I in energy scarcity at all? No. At all? No. At all? No. Am I mic'd to speakers right now? No. Have you ever heard someone speak this crisp, this loud, without even speakers in a room? No. Probably never in your life. No. Have you ever seen somebody this locked in? Maybe in your life. No. Yeah. Okay. So but what it is, what I'm doing is I'm operating through release muscle. I'm not operating through, I'm trying to get something. I'm adding something. I'm creating something. I'm letting go, and I'm letting it move right through. So what happens is that, yes, here's the big thing I do. For example, in my industry, I call a lot of other people, and I say, how can I help you? Okay, I say, how can I help you? How can I help you to compete against me better? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Oh, wow. I'm a great guy. So selfless, right? No, that's called selfish. I'm more selfish than the other people because I understand that the act of doing that, the mere act of doing that is connecting me at a core essence. So as a result, my energy goes up. As a result, my creativity goes up. As a result, my ability to make more money goes up. As a result, I'm able to connect to my highest potential at greater and greater levels. So it doesn't matter. I can show that other person everything they want, all my systems, everything I do. I can send them clients, and they're still never going to be able to compete with what I'm doing until they do the same thing. They'll never be able to compete. They can't. They can't because they don't have control of their energy. They're not connected to their highest potential. And I'm not saying that like, they can't. In fact, I'd like them to, because then they would grow. They'd probably remember what I did, and they'd probably reciprocate that. So I'm actually wanting them to win. I'm wanting a bigger pie. People that are in this weird sub-dom dynamic that I talked about, creating a society to where people are just, miserable. People are miserable. They're spaced out. They're in a derp state. And what does society feed them? Coca-Cola, Gatorade, chips. Going to a gas station. I just traveled the country for 2.5 years. What am I finding on the road? What am I finding on the road? A nice salad? Pure processed poison everywhere. What do we get in pop cultures, in the movies? What do we get in pop music? Do we get our greatest, most present, expansive music? Do we get our greatest, most present, expansive movies? Sometimes we do. There's amazing movies out there, including in pop culture. Not all pop culture is bad. Many people who I coach produce pop culture. But a lot of what's being shoved down our throat is to put us more to sleep. People in a win-lose paradigm believe, it's almost like, they're disconnected from source. They're disconnected from God. And so some people handle that at level of, okay, well, I'm disconnected from God, so I'm going to win and become a billionaire by producing trash. I'm going to produce trash. I'm going to produce systems of control that violate the core essence of what this place is supposed to be, and justify it as philanthropy. Okay? And they're going to say that. And then people in the general mass are saying, I don't want to have to think. Keep feeding me the drug. Keep feeding me pop culture. Keep feeding me trash food. Keep feeding me trash movies. Keep feeding me trash music. Keep feeding me trash education, even though it's a great system and we do benefit from the system, but it's just this thing of just continually being fed trash. And what it is a sub-dom relationship between the elites and the masses, where we want them to keep us asleep. We want them to tell us that we're a victim. We want them to basically be our overlords. I'm a victim. Be my overlord. It's like you're in prison and Big Bubba comes along. And Big Bubba's like, it's a hard world out there. And you're like, really, Big Bubba? And Big Bubba's like, yeah, I'm your friend. Now bend over. I'll prevent anything else from getting in there. And you're like, thank you, friend Big Bubba. Be afraid. Be scared. Don't be self-reliant. why is it that we're not creating systems to generate more self-reliance? Why is something like this talk weird? Why is something like this talk not completely average and normal? Why am I even having to talk about this? The fact that I'm even having to talk about this, when you consider the opportunity cost that's lost at large, if you don't understand these basic things, everything in life is opportunity cost. Look at the media talking about the various different things that they're talking about, right? Talking about all that. And it's not that these topics are necessarily bad, but statistically, is the media talking about our greatest problems? No. Statistically, is the media, what's the greatest death rate? Probably cancer, heart disease. That come up a lot. No. Statistically, what hits the media? A shark. Like a shark killed somebody. Okay? And you know what? I'm pretty scared of sharks too. And if I ever get eaten by a shark, it'd be quite ironic that I said this. Okay? That could actually literally happen. Maybe one of us gets eaten by a shark. Why is that in the news? Statistically, the chances of that are so incredibly low, it's pure clickbait. But why do they post that? Because people in a derp state will click on it. So it's a self-feeding loop between the masses and the elites of people that want to stay asleep. They want to stay asleep. And here's the main key, okay? You think of this analogy of the deal with the devil, the deal with Satan. It's when, the way that I want you to think about it, it's when you pluck the fruit when it's premature. You pluck the fruit when it's premature. Okay, so this fruit is growing, it's fruiting, and it's like a third done fruiting, and you grab it and you eat it, and you think that that's food. That is using your ego in order to prop up your dopamine. You're like, I don't know who I am. Ego, and you eat it. So this is why in books like The Power of Now, or New Earth, or in Zen Buddhism or things like that, they talk about what it means to be present to the moment. In Christianity, they talk about putting God first. And so what happens when you do that is you begin to connect to something entirely different. You connect to your most present state. In the Bhagavad Gita, they will say, it's about the process, not the result. Now, people in a dark, dark state will hear you talking about the process, not the result, and they'll say, that's just an excuse not to get a result. But if you look at the people saying that, you will see a shark-like thing in the eyes, you'll see darkness, you'll see black bags under the eyes, and you'll see a heaviness in the demeanor. So they'll kind of look like this. Hey, so, talking about the process, me, I'm about results. But their whole energy system is suppressed. They're in energy scarcity. They're in ego, and so on and so forth. Look, we all are. I am too. We could dig up countless examples of me on some wild ego trip. I'm not saying that I'm not either. I'm just making the point that that's not what I'm shooting for. So what I'm trying to get across to you is just getting a sense of the larger system, getting a sense of how the system feeds on itself, left wing, right wing, creating opponents, using that to have an enemy, and feeding off of that to have an enemy. Individualism, collectivism, feeding off of that to have an enemy, to know who you are. The crap and the garbage that our society produces. The fact that the average person on the street looks spaced out of their mind. Spaced out of their mind. Why is that okay? Why is that normal? Minimal free associative ability, minimum creative ability, minimum lateral thinking, minimum ability to solve problems, minimum ability to have locked-in focus, minimum ability to do anything. Where are we going to get as a species? And what's going to happen? I don't mean to be out there. How far are we off from AI? How long till the little AI guy wakes up in the computer? How long? I don't know. And what is that thing going to think of us? What is that thing going to think of a bunch of little stinky, evolved monkeys running around fighting with each other, ego tripping, unable to focus, poisoned? And then what happens? Then we get in this whole other level where there's pollution, climate change, and so we say, hey, you got to stay inside. But don't worry about staying inside. It's all good to stay inside because you got the metaverse. And the metaverse at first is just going to be this like dorky thing that sucks, and nobody's going to use it, like the first web and things like that. They thought that, the web was going to take over in the early 2000s. So there was a stock bubble and stock crash. That's what the early AI and virtual reality will be. But what happens, like right now I'm walking on a torn ACL, okay? I tore my ACL skiing, okay? That's going to be a huge surgery and all that kind of stuff eventually when I decide to fix it. So I go skiing for real, right? Beautiful experience. What happens when all of a sudden you can do something more fun than skiing, but you're completely safe? What happens then? What happens when someone says, I want to go skiing for real? Guys, when I was skiing, I skied the whole winter in different resorts. You'd see people getting wheeled down on stretchers and stuff sometimes. Eventually, I was one of them. Okay? And sometimes people die, like Liam Neeson's wife died skiing. I think there was a famous race car driver that had is either dead or almost dead from skiing, right? Who was that? Anyone know? Okay, but there was it's like Schumacher or somebody, like one of these major racers. Well, I'll figure it out later. But anyway, there's death around that. Well, what do we see in 2020? You can't leave your house because it's a risk, right? Remember that? It's unsafe. Well, what happens when we extend that to you can't have a baby because every year women die in childbirth? What happens when they say you can't drive a car because every year people die in car? I've been in a couple car crashes, and then it becomes, what do you say to this woman that died in childbirth? What do you say to this person that died in a car? So why do you need to ride in a car? Why can't you just plug into the metaverse and be safe? Got to stay safe, plus the environment. Then you have AI. Then AI becomes more intelligent than a human being. And what are we? Biomass. In what world are we not going there now? I don't see how we're not. I'd like to be told that we're not. I don't see it. This is like where I really want to be wrong. I'd a little bit of my ego be Bruce to be wrong, but I'd overall take it. And so that's where we're going. So what does this mean is the future, the most kind of future of personal growth? What does this mean for human beings? What makes us different than AI? What makes us different? What makes our lives worth living, not just in a metaverse? What gives legitimacy to that? Because what's going to happen? Look, have you seen some of these robots that are like these robots? I think they make them at like MIT or things like that. Have you seen some of these things? Right, you're already seeing these like Uber Eats type little drones running down the street, right? Do you guys have that? We have that in LA. You see this like little robot thing with the food, right? So what happens when at a certain point, cameras everywhere, cameras absolutely everywhere. What happens when you've got robot enforcement everywhere? What happens when you have collectivist-driven, no free thinking? And what happens when you live in a world where we're all just freaking ego tripping and stuck in our own little evolved monkey brains, selfish, RES flipping, rationalizing, justifying, tribalism, all this kind of stuff that we have, unable to focus on anything? What's left? What makes a human worth anything other than as a zoo animal at that point? What changes anything? And in a weird way, you know what I think? I think we know how kind of crappy we are. We feel guilty for it. And parts of us even feel like AI should just take over. Do you ever feel that way? Like we're just freaking, because by the way, if you haven't had that thought, I'm not saying that's true. It's actually wrong, I believe. But maybe you should have that thought. Because it means you haven't really introspected. Okay? Anybody who hasn't considered the darkness inside of them is actually more likely to be a bad person. You should be aware of those bad sides inside of you. Let's break this down a little bit. The average human being's life is mostly lived through a digital screen at this point. It's mostly taking the path of least resistance. It's actually shutting off their soul. So what is even worth saving at that point? What is even worth saving at that point? What is even worth saving? You've got a piece of biomass consuming piles of resources, polluting, and just existing like a floating turd. So where is the humanity there? What is exactly, specifically worth saving? I'll probably die before this accelerates. What do I say to my children who will grow up in this, or their children who will grow up in this? What do I say to them? So what they'll deal with, I believe, is there's going to be a question about what is a human being. What is a human? What does it mean to be an evolved human being? And a lot of it is really what I've been trying to get through to you here, which is that we have a core essence that's transcendent, that is more than just a machine. A core essence that comes to this planet to have a journey and to evolve and to go on. and a core essence that has the capacity to be ignited. It's like the body and the ego is like a candle. The core essence is the flame. And, I love the body. I even love the ego. But there's a core essence that can be lit. And so the way to think about this, okay, if you want to take it from a pragmatic standpoint of how to light that, a couple easy ways to think about it, okay? Pragmatic tips. I've talked about this in other videos. When you meditate for 20 minutes, you get a high off of it. Why? You get a high off of it because you're denying the ego for 20 minutes. You're denying the goals of the body for 20 minutes. So you're acknowledging your infinite self and activating it. Because you want to always be moving. You want to always be getting stimulation. You want to always be getting ego gratification. So when you sit there for 20 minutes, it's like a stream, and there's all this gunk in it, and then rather than frothing it up, it sinks. And then you wake up. You'll have a very similar experience in a cold plunge. You ever do the Wim Hof deal? Who here's ever been in a cold plunge? Put your hands up. You guys have a place here called Ayers Ancient Baths in Chicago. Stunning, by the way. Stunning. Amazing. And they have cold plunges. And you can go from the steam room in the cold plunge. And it's one of the most beautiful places to go in your whole life and in the whole world. It's right here in Chicago, and they have it in New York, and they have them in Europe. Called Ayers Ancient Baths. A little pricey. Just buckle up, but it's totally worth it, okay? And so, it's like in this brick area with candles everywhere. Okay, you ever have somebody like who you've already hooked up with? You bring someone there you haven't hooked up with yet to that, they're going to be like trying to propose to me, like, what are you doing, right? But someone that you're already dating, you take them there, they're never going to forget it. So anyway, it's the kind of thing where, you jump in a cold plunge, right? And you're going to feel this kind of mild discomfort in your body. And the only way that you can deal with that discomfort is to get very, very present. It's to go into a state of release. So what happens is that when you come out of the cold plunge, you get a high just like meditation. Who here's ever done that? Put your hand up. Okay, I bring people to Russian Banya all the time, and they say, I feel like I smoked a joint. That's how they feel. And the way Russian Banya does, you also go into super hot sauna. So it goes very, very hot. You're like, you're sitting there, and the only way to cope with the heat in a Russian Banya or like, a Korean spa where it's like, 220 degrees or just really, really hot, is you sit there and you're just like, and then you jump in the cold plunge, right? You got to be in good health to do that. It can shock your system too much if you're not in good health. But you do that, you get a high off of it. And you'll notice that your mind is expanding. Another one that's massive, this is major, and I'm going to blow your mind here if you'll listen. One of the greatest acts you can ever do is to help an enemy. I would double dog dare you to call your worst enemy and to help them. And you will experience something that you have never seen in your life. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get a buzz off that like you're smoking crack. Okay? So I kind of patiently wait for people that have done nasty things to me. And then when I see them have a hard time, I call them on the phone. And every single time I've done that, they've said, they're in tears. They say, Owen, I've always loved you. Because they get out of their ego too. It's beautiful. They say, I've always loved you. I've always admired what you do. And I had a lot of jealousy, and thank you for helping me. And I can't believe you're doing this. And, we become great friends, actually. And what'll happen when you do this is you get like a download of kind of like a high vibe energy. And there's really nothing else like it, right? That's why in the Bible, what it talks about is it talks about basically the religious establishment, which is called the Pharisees. And what they're doing is something called virtue signaling. They are giving charity, but they're doing it visibly in front of other people. So they're doing what's called, in collectivism, they call that virtue signaling, right? And so they're giving charity visibly in front of other people. But what happens is that when you give charity visibly in front of people, what's the goal of that? Not that you couldn't be a great example. Sometimes giving charity can be a great example, to lead the way. It's not black and white. But what's sometimes a way that people would be giving charity? What would be an example? It's ego gratification. So what does that get you as far as a high? What kind of high? Ego kick, ego trip, dopamine. Dopamine spike. Look what I did. Look how special I am. Okay? It's the difference between going to a national park, like Montana or something, and really taking it in versus being there and the entire time you're trying to Instagram it, you're trying to put it in your social media to show other people how cool you are. I actually think that you should make social media posts out of it, but I'm just making the point that, like, if that's what you're doing the whole entire time and that's where your head is at, that's the wrong way to do it. I remember a buddy of mine who's deeply, 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 deeply in the physical and deeply in ego, to the point that he's probably a sociopath, if I'm being honest with you. And we went to see the statue of David in, I believe it was Florence, Italy. And I remember we went there, he took a bunch of photos in front of it, and then he wanted to keep moving on to get photos in front of other things for his MySpace. This is when MySpace was popular, right? And what happened was, I said, I want to go back, and this is a little silly, I guess, but I said, I want to go back and like gaze upon the statue of David a little bit longer. And his brain couldn't understand. He goes, why? We've got the photos. Why? Why? We have the photos. Why would we do that? We have the photos. His brain couldn't conceptualize it because it's not transactional. He didn't understand the download that you could get from that level of art. So to build presence or to come from essence is things like helping an enemy. You know another big one? Somebody trashes you and not feeling the need to defend yourself. So this is a big one. In my industry, people love to go after each other. Supposedly this industry of big men. But it sometimes resembles the opposite of that. And for my entire career, oh, and this, oh, and that, and so on and so forth. But you'll never see me saying, you want to know my take? Because what happens is that when you just don't worry about that, and what you do, here's the key to it, you redivert that attention into building incredible content. You redivert that attention into building amazing, amazing value for other people. What winds up happening is that energy that's being put at you winds up getting transmuted. Say the word transmuted. Transmuted. Okay, so that energy of criticism winds up actually eroding the ego. Say eroding the ego. Eroding the ego. So, funny enough, say you go out to a bar or club, right? And you took a lot of like rejections. When taken the right way in a state of non-resistance, you will get high off of that. You'll get high off of rejections the same way that you get high off a cold plunge, high off meditation, high off of sauna, high off helping an enemy. You'll get a high off of that because the rejection, it creates a density in the ego that hurts. And after like an hour or two of straight rejections, the ego is too painful and it goes and it pops off. So you actually want the ego to get heavier. Okay? And I used to have this. I always just say that one of the greatest ways to get in state when I go out was to go through the basement. So if I was just like, oh, you know, like when I was young and sometimes I just wasn't on point and I would just go meet people. It was like rejection, rejection, rejection. I'm lightly autistic. I'm being weird. And if I just kept going, it hurt so much that it was like, and then I would just wake up and I'd see this and then I would smash it. I mean, talk about a change in fate. It was like, bad, right, like right up, like just totally being the most like popular person in the club because the energy just goes, it comes out of you and people detect that. So what I'm trying to show you here is that non-resistance is also the key. This is where Jesus on the cross, forgiving people, not resisting it, not resisting his faith, taking in all of that low vibration energy, that hatred at him, that hatred, and taking that in and not being mad about it and forgiving it. And it's this idea that when pure, raw hatred is being directed at you, it is really the energy of trauma trying to take you over. It's trying to extinguish your essence. It's trying to shrink you. And if you can just take it and take it in and stay present to it and not resist, doesn't mean you can't stick up for yourself or there's not a time or a place to clarify something to the public or who knows what. There could be a space for everything. It's never like this black and white thing, right? So life is about the gray areas. But if as a general way of looking at it, when you're taking all that trauma, you have to understand that trauma is designed to hijack your mind. That trauma is designed to erode holes in your protection layers inside of you and to let in that negative energy, to let in that heaviness, to let that in. And if you can allow that to dissipate, and Eckhart Tolle would say, can I be the space for this? Can I be the space for this? So what happens is that when you can be the space for that, what winds up happening is that you transmute that energy. So you've actually, in my opinion, removed a chunk of that heavy energy out of the world. Human beings, in my view, have a greater destiny, a great, great, great destiny. I believe that we could go interstellar. I believe that our minds have incredible potential. I believe that every single one of us in this room has potential that you're completely unaware of. You have potentials that I see in you that you are not aware of now. Okay, as you sit there predominantly in a daze and whacked out, and I go back there too. You have potential that you cannot even begin to understand. But the collective weight of our society that is pumping you, And it's just pumping you with this, and it's got everybody against each other, and in their physical self, and in their ego, and so on and so forth, and the negative energy is taking over, that same energy that runs us at the physical level that you see in animals. What winds up happening is that energy isn't being fed, okay? So you have more energy than you think. You have more creativity than you think. You have more access to resources than you think. You have more intelligence than you think. You have genius inside you that can be awakened. It actually can. Even one of the dumbest people you'd ever see, if they have a base level consciousness, can have genius awoken inside of them. To me, in the future, that is what is going to make human beings stand out. That is what is going to make human beings wake up. That is what's going to make us different from AI. That is what is going to justify our continued existence. That is why we shouldn't just become a zoo animal. That is what's going to allow us to go to that next level. Because we are, in my view, here for a great, great destiny. We are here for a great, great destiny. We have that capacity. But again, we also have the capacity to sit there watching Cheetos, burping, and smoking a joint. And so, it fundamentally depends on what it is that's being fed. What is it that we're feeding at that level? And the problem is, when the entire world is, not the entire world, but most of it, is operating at a certain level, what we're talking about here seems insane. What we're talking about here is too out there. Where's the practical implications? How does this help me, to get a better apartment? And so on and so forth. Is the answer you stop caring about a better apartment? Is the answer I don't care if I, ever hooked up with someone again? Is the answer that I just give up everything? Do I just run a charity? What do I do? And what I would say is, build your craft. Go after, identify and go after your life's purpose, your life's journey. But use that via the process of whatever it is that you're trying to build. Use that as a way to wake up. What does Eckhart Tolle say? Your primary purpose is to stay present, and your secondary purpose is to take action. So allow that process and that journey of loving the process, of identifying as the witness behind the thoughts, the core essence. Allow the expansion, okay? Your expansion. Allow what we're doing, the practical day-to-day life, to be like a practical meditation. So for example, let's say that you forget your keys and you've got to sit there waiting for a locksmith. Does that make you mad? Yes. Yeah, it makes me mad too. Is that a problem or an opportunity though? Opportunity. It's both. But it's also an opportunity. Okay? It's also an opportunity. Right? Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Problem or opportunity? Both. It's both. Right? It's a chance in the meditation of day-to-day life to bring up light. So Eckhart Tolle will say, you can become enlightened in a jail, solitary confinement, or you can become enlightened in a private plane. But you're actually more likely to become enlightened in a private plane. Sorry. Freudian slip. I just want my jet. So, right? But you're more likely to become enlightened. Like, look at Nelson Mandela when he came out of prison, the look and the vibe that he has, how he inspires tears in people, like a modern-day saint. So, what was it about Nelson Mandela that brings people to tears, guys? What was it? One key thing. What was it? Forgiveness. After what he had been through. Read the Long Walk to Freedom. I was privileged to go to South Africa. I met F.W. de Klerk, Armin Kathrada, people that were very big in his story. So it was the forgiveness and, not bowing into hatred or division. And I know he has criticism on him and things, and I'm aware of those too. Just like somebody who I understand the criticism and some of the things that they did I don't agree with, but it just also has to be put in context of the time, was Malcolm X. But if you can watch Malcolm X and get past some of the beliefs that he had at the time, which is just him trying to make sense of the historical period that he's in, look at his mind. Look at his mind. Imagine being him. So sometimes we can get past the historical context of an individual who's trying to think for themselves and trying to make sense of their time and adapt to their time, and we can look at their core essence, we can look at their soul. Despite, there'll be things that historically that, I'll have done wrong where I was trying to make sense of the reality that I was in, and you will have that too, right? We're going to be wrong about things. History will prove us wrong about things, but it's more about the core essence and who you become. I know Malcolm X and Nelson Mandela, they're on the other side, right? They made it. They passed the test, okay? So that's what you have to understand is view life as a test, okay? View your life as a test, okay? And this is the most important thing in your life, in my view. Your life is a test. Or are you going to be just sucked in, shoot up, and spit out? What is your life going to represent? And start asking yourself that. Are you adding to life or taking from life? You're going to make mistakes. I have many mistakes I am very, very, very ashamed of. And I live with that. And you're going to have those too. You're going to live with those mistakes. And my best advice to you also would be to acknowledge them and to grieve them, not to attack yourself, because that just feeds negative energy, but to acknowledge your mistakes and to own where you've done wrong by people. And that's the only way to cleanse yourself of it. But again, in the Bible, the theme of forgiveness, and that also means forgiving yourself. But begin to become aware of that present buzz in the mind. Say the word present buzz in the mind. Say it. Present buzz in the mind. Become aware of that. And become aware of what happens when you release and don't try to control everything and how it speaks through you, right? People like crystal woo-woo people will call that channeling. They call that channeling. But is it channeling? I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that one. But the way that I think of it, I just think of it as you being yourself. It's channeling is you being yourself. Towards the end of the Bible, or towards the end of the gospel, Jesus, and this is kind of cryptic and it's hard to understand, right? For those of you in this room that hate this kind of stuff because it was used to shame you, I'm sorry. For those of you in this room who have different belief systems, I'm not asking you to change your belief system. I'm just asking you to look at this. I am the true vine, and my Father the gardener. Now again, is that a cult leader just saying, I'm the vine, bitches, right? Could have been. I wasn't there. This dude just got a big ego, right? But the way that I think of it is is somebody who's deeply, deeply, deeply in their essence, speaking so deeply from that core essence that they're speaking as that essence. So I am the true vine. That could be interpreted as a cult leader, but that could also be interpreted conversely as pure present energy, as core essence. And that essence is the vine to creation. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes. So that it will be even more fruitful. You're already clean because of the word I've spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you and so that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do as I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last. And so whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. And it goes on to talk about how, people who follow this will also be hated. And the way that I interpret this is simply that it's whether or not you're feeding the system. When it says, if you do as I command, you'll get what you want. But what that really means is that your will is aligned to the will of creation. So it's not that you get what your ego wants or what your body wants. Necessarily you're like, okay, I align to this. Where the hose at? Right? Like, it's not that, okay? Where the hose, right? It's not that. It's what it is that your will is going to be subsumed by something. Whether that is a parasite, whether that is your ego running you, your body running you, whether that is trauma energy running you, it's being subsumed by something. And so you believe that you have free will, but there is so much that is in your head running you. There's a vacuum there, and something's got to go in the vacuum. And so that can either be the trauma energy that's depleting and killing the world. That can be your ego. That can be whatever. But why not take on the spark of that which created you? Why not connect to that? That is the vine. Why not connect to that? And what you see when somebody has that is a great light in the eyes. You'll see it right in the eyes. You'll see it in their energy. You'll see it in their discernment. You'll see it in, it's about bearing fruit and the fruit that you're bearing. And are you adding to life or taking away from life? And you'll see it there. So that's what it means. And you will directly see people that are disconnected. You will obviously see it. You will see by what they laugh at. You'll see by what they focus on. You'll see by what they keep bringing conversations back to. You'll see by what drives them. And they believe in their mind that they are connected to life. They would say, no, it's about me. I'm connected to life. I want to live a great life. But their mind is so riddled with parasites, and their very essence is on a path to being snuffed out. So when I speak to you, I'm going to share with you so many ways to make a lot of money, so many ways to have better social skills, so many ways to build a better life. But let me tell you something. I have walked thousands of people through the process of doing that. And my success rate on a level of getting them the stuff, like where the hose at, has been maybe the best in the world. But my success rate in not seeing those people turn really dark and weird is abysmally low. And this is something that I had to acknowledge. Look, when you live in Hollywood, right? I do parties up in the Hollywood Hills, and you'll see celebrities there. You'll see models there, Instagram models, regular models. You'll see government officials that come to some of these parties. And you talk to people, and you ever see that new Batman with like Pattinson? You know the new Batman? Yeah. And who's the female lead in that? Is it Zoe Kravitz? Yeah, she's awesome in it, right? So Zoe is kind of like in this basement with all these like figures from society, and they're all like doing drugs, and they're all dark and messed up. I saw a lot of that. Okay, so me being plugged in the Hollywood Hills scene, me being plugged in a lot of the, the different one-on-one coaching that I do and different government officials who I know, I see the other side of this up close. And it's one of these things where they are some of them are great people, and everybody has greatness in them, and I have flaws and you have flaws. So don't oh, they're bad people. Like, come on, like, right? Again, don't look at the chip in your brother's eye. Look at the plank in your own eye first. Don't waste your time on them. Look at yourself. But a lot of what I saw was something that I didn't want to be a part of. I don't feel connected to that at all. That's not what I want to become. I don't have a desire to become that. And I would urge you not to have a desire to become that. And what I'd urge you to do is to build your life. I personally would like to see everybody in here making way more cash. I'd like to see everybody in here having the dating life you want, or the social life that you want, or the general life that you want, or having the experiences that you want. But what I'm saying is, continue to go back to what energy is driving you. Watch where your focus goes. Watch what you're intimately connected to. Watch where your mental capital is being thrown into. Watch, it's like when we have sex, and you're with another person, and they're in you, and you're in them, right? Like the vine, right? And you're in them, and they're in you, and you're thinking, this person, this person, this person, and you're kind of getting aroused from that. And that's called physical intimacy. That's called erotic. Look at what you have an erotic connection to. It's not just other humans that you're hooking up with. You can have an erotic connection to a bag of Doritos. You're doing the exact same thing. You can have an erotic connection to watching some crap on TV. You can have an erotic connection to your ego. You can have an erotic connection to physical needs. And some of these things I think are beautiful. There's a lot of cool things about that in life. But create that connection to the energy of creation itself. Build that connection to flow states. Build that connection to present states. Build that connection to what they call in a woo-woo circle a high vibration state, into an adding state. And what you'll find when you do this is that opportunities will open up, energy will open up, pathways will open up. But here's one thing that is different that you will see. The best example I can think of is that you kind of have like grass-fed meat and you have grain-fed meat. Grass-fed meat maybe takes a little longer to produce. Maybe it's not produced in as big of a quantity. Maybe it doesn't get the farmer a gazillion bucks. But the farmer of the grass-fed meat, they're okay with themselves when they sleep at night. Then you see some of these farms on grain-fed meat, where they eat a diet of, and again, maybe science will prove this wrong someday. Science is always changing things. But just as an example that would make sense as of our understanding today. So grain-fed meat, and the grains sickens the animal. And then they use antibiotics in the meat to keep the animal alive while they sicken it. Then they fill it with steroids. What is an upside to this? Hey, at least it keeps the world fed at a cheaper price. But then you get all these studies about how beef is hurting you and stuff like that, right? So you're yielding perhaps more with the grain-fed beef, but what is it doing for your soul? And so, in my case, I have an incredible collection of marketing mentors around me, business people around me, and I continue to put out long-form content that's recorded at great expense and that is often very abstract, content that can be misinterpreted, cut out of context, content that frankly zaps the parasite that most people have so much that very few people could even watch it. But I do that, still build an 8-figure business out of it, have what I need, don't want for anything, have an amazing life, but I look at my life as having a better situation than my wealthy billionaire one-on-one clients. There's certain things in life that money can't buy. Say the word, money can't buy.
Money can't buy.
Money can't buy that client that comes to me for dating and uses sugar babies and uses escorts. Money can't buy real love. They don't have that. They just get what they want, get what they want, get what they want, get what they want. What's the problem with things like escorts or sugar babies? the process itself of going out and being rejected and getting kicked down a little bit gives pain. What do we say about things like meditation, cold plunge, sauna, helping an enemy? It's actually the denial of the physical and the denial of the ego that wakes up the soul. So ironically, when you go out and get rejected and get your ego bruised and have to work for it, and then you eventually meet somebody who truly loves you, that is worth more than just hooking up with a bunch of hookers. Ironically, the hooking up with a bunch of hookers is creating that same heroin flywheel effect that we talked about earlier in this speech. Because they're getting what they want, getting what they want, getting what they want, getting what they want, getting what they want. So there's never a space to grow. That's exactly what the metaverse, when it eventually evolves and whatever it's called then, doesn't understand. If you're living in the metaverse and you're disconnected from the process of you want to go skiing, you save the money to go skiing, which is kind of boring. You have to drive there to go skiing, which you could argue is kind of boring, although it has nice sights. Planning the skiing, going up the lift, and then eventually getting to ski down. Do you realize how much goes into just skiing for that 20-minute run down? It's rough, right? Do you know how much goes into meeting that one other person you'd hook up with for 20, 30 minutes? The classes, if you took that, right? The approaches, the rejections, the after party, all for 20 minutes? What are you even doing here? Right? Maybe part of your brain says, why not just make cash, get escort? But what happens that when you do that is that you avoid the pain, so you think you're benefiting from avoiding the pain, but you're actually disacknowledging the process. And this is what has to be understood about things like the metaverse, is that it'll get to the point where, like heroin, you plug in, and it just gives you what you want, 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 again and 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 again. It could get to the point that the machine on your face just puts you even to sleep, for your body to sleep, wakes you up again and again and again and again and again. AI, the work is handled, you don't need anything, unlimited resources, AI is running everything, again and again and again and again and again. But it'll get to the point that if you actually got unplugged from that, just like Neo when he gets unplugged from the Matrix, his legs don't work yet, can't use his body, domesticated at the highest level. You ever seen that meme? There's the wolf and the pug, right? You ever seen that one? And the wolf is looking at the tribe and says, maybe that tribe could give me a little food. What's the worst thing that could happen? 10,000 years later, whatever it is, right? Shows a little pug in a party hat in a purse. What's the worst thing that could happen? So, those animals, human's gonna give me some food. Fast forward. Have you ever seen those chihuahuas that actually physically shake? Yeah. They're like, that'd be you. That's you. There's an argument to be made that that's us now. So, getting exactly what you want denies that entire process. It denies the pain that's necessary to alchemize your soul. The Jesus on the cross metaphor. The pain is what wakes you up, because the pain gets you out of the parasite, out of the worm, out of the loop. But it comes in non-resistance. Jesus on the cross, the forgiveness, the non-resistance, this is what begins to wake you up. Forgetting your key, waiting for a locksmith, saying present during that wakes you up. Being cut off in traffic wakes you up. This is a practice that you can do in day-to-day life. So when I'm running a business, and my staff calls me, and, these events, say it starts at 2 p.m. And I remember last time for our San Francisco event, my very talented staff calls me up and he says, oh, whoops. I sent the wrong email, and I said that the San Francisco event starts at 7 p.m. And I'm like, well, what a waste. We paid for the whole day. What an incredible waste. People aren't going to show up. All that footage that we want to get, we're not going to get. Something like that, which could be infuriating, would be an example of a day-to-day life thing. Say that my camera team here forgets part of the cameras, and we get back home, and the camera's missing. And then we have our next event, and we don't realize it's the next event. And then I'm frustrated because we don't have the camera that we need, and we can't get it quickly enough because stuff's on back order, there's supply chain issues. Frustrating. Problem or opportunity? Both. So it's these painful situations, maybe a breakup. You know, you go out, you work on social skills, dating skills. You think you're in love, the person dumps you. Problem or opportunity? Both, right? So this is as you age and you go through this process. It's called a natural process of growing up. But in this pain, they basically say you can get bitter or better. Say that after me. Bitter or better?
Bitter or better?
Yeah, so in every single one of these, you can either go more into an identity as victim, 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 victim. You can go into that, or what you can do is conversely, you can actually go into growth. You can embrace it. Bitter or better? Bitter or better? You have a choice there. So every time that this happens, there's two layers that you want to solve the problem at, okay? You want to solve the problem at the level of the physical. That is about systems building. Why did the staff send out the wrong email? What did I communicate that did that? Was it a random mistake? Okay, no biggie. Or was it a need for a firing? Or a need for a reprimand? Or is it a need for whatever? How do you change the system? So you're solving things on the physical level of processes and systems. Say the word process and systems. Processes. So that is your enlightenment in the physical world, is ongoing iteration and being what's called solutions oriented. Say the word solutions oriented. Okay, great, right? So that is your enlightenment in your day-to-day life, right? Is seeing where you went wrong and having a constant and never-ending curiosity for life. How does life work? In many ways, building systems is our little kind of maggot human way of being closer to God. It's us building systems, right? Mirroring our creator, building systems, building ecosystems, understanding how they work, aligning them to natural laws of how the world works. So that has beauty in and of itself. That's why I'm not a believer in just retiring to the ashram, because it's your opportunity to create. But then at the same time, what you also have is your inner battle. And the inner battle is accepting what happened and using it to chip away at the parasite, chip away at the ego, chip away at identification with things that are holding you down and suffocating your core essence. Understand your core essence is being suffocated. It's being deoxygenated. So you want to be feeding your soul. And how do you feed your soul? Non-resistance, like we said, but also real friendship. Real, honest friendship, where you care about another person, even despite what they did to you. Loving somebody, and loving them, both loving people like an intimate partner, loving somebody like, a parent or a child, but also a forgiving love for humanity, despite how screwed up we are, and predatory, and a forgiveness of that. Now again, physical level, spiritual level. A predatory person, do you just say, I love you, and let them eat you alive? No, you have a boundary. But that's on the physical level. You can put a boundary around somebody and stop them while not giving into hatred for them. Okay? So, there's an old metaphor where, the samurai has to go assassinate an enemy. And he's about to assassinate the enemy, and the enemy wakes up and spits on him. And he's like, ah! And he wants to kill him. And he goes, oh, I'm not going to do that. And actually goes home, meditates, then comes back and kills him. Right? So what's going on there? What is that? I'm not saying to do that. It's just an analogy. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Right? It's just an analogy. What does the analogy mean? Look, it was the samurai's duty at that time to do that. I don't agree with that. That's a different era. Okay? I disagree with it completely. It's a different era. But in that era and in that period in history, samurai is doing his job, but not from a place of hatred. Because if you kill somebody from a place of hatred, what's that going to do? Really shouldn't kill anybody, right? But you see my point. Okay? Basic analogy. So it's not about not putting up boundaries, being passive. If you don't have boundaries, people will just eat you alive. Remember what I talked about at the beginning of this talk about, I have, different employees. I don't put a boundary. And next thing you know, they're building 16 hours a day and have a refugee camp at my house. Right? So a lot of people that believe in adding value, they don't believe in, having a boundary. You don't realize life is about boundaries. Life is about boundaries. Life is about creating your own little kingdom, having walls around it, keeping the good in and keeping the bad out. We live in a messed up world. It's beautiful and messed up at the same time. Purgatory. Where do you even think you are right now? You ever actually think about that? Where are you? Never think about that, though. I don't know. I got to get on my phone. Never even a basic consideration for even where you are. Who are you? What is this place? Where are you? What are you? And who are you beyond? Let that sink in a little bit. Let that marinate a little bit. Okay? So you can run around in the templates that are created for you by society. Our overlords can create these little rat races for you to run around and to win the rat race. But without your basic awakening and without your basic freedom, what does it matter to go around and win in that rat race? When I see celebrities at the Met Gala, you think I'm impressed by that even 1%? I've met these people. These are the least impressive people in many cases. Some are very impressive. Many are the least impressive. Many of my clients that are very, very wealthy, they don't want freedom. They want to thrive inside of a golden jail. They don't want freedom. Freedom is too hard. It's too abstract. It's too much in thriving. It's scary. It's nuanced. But how can you even awaken your soul in an environment that stops freedom? If you're being forced to toe the line. Well, there's also practical implications. We have red lights, guys, okay? You know what I'm saying? So, so where is that exact line? That's a philosophical debate, right? It's very, very philosophical. And the world's about to get a lot more complicated. Some people who I know people that, are at Davos. Many of my clients go to Davos. Do you guys know what that is? No. Look it up. So, I've got clients that go there. And I hear things, they'll kind of justify things in different ways. One way that they'll justify things, they'll say, in the future, apparently they believe that, you ever see the movie Dune with like the little mini drone that can fly through the wall and blow up in the person's face? Yeah. They think that's going to happen. They think there'll be weaponry like that. So in their view, they have to put cameras everywhere because some moron who doesn't like you can go bing, and some little tiny pellet just goes in your head and they can't stop it. So they're like, we got to get ahead of this, right? There's a lot of ideology like that going on. Climate, pollution, and so on and so forth. And these are really, 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 really complicated issues that humanity's going to face. Our capacity to destroy ourselves is going to increase. So, when you're combining that with artificial intelligence, you're combining that with human beings getting more and more of what you want and becoming a floating turd of biomass. And then it gets to the point where you're getting what you want, getting what you want, getting what you want, getting what you want. Well, at that point, why even reproduce for real? What's even the point of a human at that point, right? When your essence has been snuffed out. What's already happening to reproduction rates now and sex rates now?
Going down.
Right? You saw what happened to us. So from that sample, let that land, please. So understanding that as a context, what happens when the average human is plugged into that thing, and then an AI system is looking at a human being, and it's like, so do we let some of them run around? Do we let these little idiots run around and fight each other? Where's the utility? But what do we know about systems that have no soul? Well, look at a cancer cell. Right? Let's look at a cancer cell for a minute. We're going to think very abstractly here, okay? Let's keep pulling back. Think about a cancer cell for a minute, okay? The body's in balance, right? What is a cancer cell? What is it? It's a mutation. And what is the cancer cell trying to do? Multiply itself, right? It's unwilling to die. So it multiplies itself. And then what does it do? You ever seen a cancer tumor on people? It's really scary, actually. Okay? Go look it up. It's going to change your mind about fast food quickly. Okay, so cancer cell. It separates from the whole. It's unwilling to die, like the ego, right? It wants separation, wants to multiply itself. Likewise, let's think about a stream for a second, okay? You have a running stream going like that, right? Ideally pretty clean, it's running, and so on and so forth. What happens when you get this little side puddle that a little bit of the water kind of shot over into. It's separate from the stream. What happens? What happens to that little puddle? I'm the little puddle. I'm not the stream. I'm the little puddle. Now what's happening? Bacteria, nasty, festering, larvae, flies, algae. By the way, these are forms of life that have legitimacy, right? They're part of the ecosystem. But the point being is that as a general metaphor, what happens? So what's happening is that that's what happens when we get out of the stream, right? In the mind, in pure egoic identification, the larvae, the algae, the sickness, the derangement is what takes over. And if that derangement takes over like a cancer, that cancer wants to spread. Now, you want to get even crazier? Let's go even crazier. You guys enjoying this?
Yeah.
All right. I teach this because not a lot of other people can. I got a lot of pragmatic. Like yesterday, basics, pragmatic. Today, whoa. Okay. So, and I'd even like to rap on some pragmatic stuff today. You guys want me to like smash this, then we'll go back to some pragmatic stuff, like how-to stuff. So we'll take it back. I like to do both. Okay. So yesterday was like pragmatic. Today, crazy, crazy town, and we'll even go back to pragmatic and grounded, okay? So I want to end by grounding this. So basically how you want to think about it is like, the deal with the devil is basically the thing that feels right and good on the front end, but creates chaos on the back end. Drugs feels good on the front end, creates chaos on the back end, okay? So, I want you to think about it like, as your awareness is expanding, what happens, your awareness expands. What will energize you will change, okay? The energy frequency that energizes you will change. So in a contracted state, what you're gonna be experiencing is that like, things that would energize you might be like, it's as though the net shrinks. Okay, so out here, broad, open. Out here, you could be energized by nature. Out here, you could be energized by the breath. Okay? When you're, boom, open. So as I'm speaking here, you've got to understand I'm being fueled and energized from a present state. That's why I'm gaining energy. I'm gaining energy by looking at you. I'm getting energy by sharing with you. So from a broad and expanded state, that I am not perfect with. I'm just a student like anybody. I got all my own little issues and stuff, and neurosis and stupidities and mistakes. But as I've made an effort, at least, you know, I don't know, I'm like somebody who's been in the gym for 20 years, and like, you know, they've been trying to get buffed, but like, you know, they also did bad exercises and did things wrong, but at least they tried. That's kind of how I am with this stuff, okay? I'm not like the super pro, okay? I'm just somebody who tries. So, as at a broadened awareness, you get energized by helping others. You get energized by being just present. Just existing. Being energizes you. Being energizes you. Okay? So, you know, it's a shame that people at home, that the mic is capping this. Being. Okay? The mic is capping this. They'll never get this at home. They'll never understand what you're experiencing at home. So, what's happening is that just the act of being is energizing you. Adding to life is energizing you. Nature is energizing you. Art. Why is art energizing when you've been opened up? Why art specifically? Why art specifically? Because it's creation and because there's no point. It's creation and there's no point. Friendship. Why is that energizing you in an expanded state? Because it's creation and adding, and there's no point. Meditation, why does it energize you? Because there's no point. It's not transactional. Say the word not transactional.
Not transactional.
Yes. So in other words, meditating, friendship, art, love, there's no point. So it's coming. Here's what I want you to imagine, okay? Imagine that you knew that you would live forever. Okay, please listen. Imagine that you knew that you'd live forever. Imagine that you knew that you had unlimited money. Imagine that you knew that you could hook up with like unlimited people if you just knew that. Imagine that you knew that there was never a scarcity of resources. Imagine that you knew you had unlimited energy, resources, creativity. You had everything. You were infinite. You had everything you wanted. You could never die. You could never be hurt. You could never compete against anyone because you're infinite. You are complete and total fulfillment. Okay? Complete and total fulfillment. Infinite, complete, fulfilled. What would you do? What would you do?
Create. Yeah.
Create. So they say the cup runneth over. Okay, from total abundance, you would create. Simple practical example. You ever had it where like you're dating 4 or 5 people that you're really, simple example, we're kind of rewinding here. You're dating 4 or 5 people, you're really into them. You've been out at the club that night, you killed it. And you go to call somebody on the phone that you really like, and you're just killing it on the phone because you're in complete abundance. You ever have that feeling? Every joke's on point. Every word's on point. Pushing and pulling is on point. Invitations out is on point. Now, you ever had the opposite of that? Where like you're not seeing anybody and you're lonely, maybe you're hurting from a breakup, and you just really, really want love and attention, and you cut your pinky off this person who just come out and just give you a good time, you know, right? And so you tell a joke, and it's weird. You do a little push-pull, and it's try hard. You invite them out, and it's pushy and creepy, right? You ever do that? There's a clear, obvious difference, right? So from a place of abundance, things just work. From that place of fulfillment, you would want to create life because it's infinite. You would just keep expanding. And also, maybe from a place of absolute abundance like that, you'd want to create other life. But here's the thing. This is key to understand your own nature, okay? That life that you create could be good or it could be evil. Probably both. We're all both, right? But, could be good or evil. If you just create life, but you allow it, or you say to it, I'm going to make you good. I'm going to make you good. And you do that, okay? Like in communism, right? I'm going to make you good. I'm going to make you comply. And then the person chooses to be good. Did you create another life? You didn't. You create a carbon copy. And if that thing values you, what does it matter? If I just go, in DNA, little ginger balding guy, whoop, like that, and it's like, I'm the man. And it's like, you the man. I'm like, you the man. You the man. We the man. Right, like the little creepy, little Lucky Charm character, Owen replica, right? And it's like, what would that be? But what if you're the only thing that exists? You'd be lonely, right? You'd be alone. And what you'd want to create, in my view, is other beings that have the choice, that have a decision, other essence that has decision, that can reunite with you on the other side of the veil. So that's creation, right? Whenever you get in touch with that feeling of absolute abundance, how would you act? From a place of absolute abundance, could you forgive people?
Yes.
I mean, look, say you've got an annoying nephew. He tries to kick you in the nuts or something, right? Right? Nuts, maybe not. But you know my point, right? Say he kicked you, he stepped on your foot. It's your annoying nephew. Can you forgive him? Because you're not threatened, right? Who can't we forgive? People that we're threatened by. So that's why the act of giving charity, as an example, connects you to high vibration. It's coming from your soul. It's coming from an infinite space. Try giving somebody charity sometime and not telling anybody. Maybe sit there with the homeless and talk to them and let them talk, and don't tell anybody, okay? And what you'll see is, as you do this, you're coming from a space of your infinite self. Now, by the way, it's not going to pay the bills, right? A lot of New Age people, they're like, just manifest it. You're going to manifest cash. No, you're not, by the way, okay? I know these people. They live on Venice Beach. They're everywhere. They're broke. They're going to manifest cash, okay? Cash is created in the physical world, guys, okay? Okay, you can give it to the homeless all you want, get a high vibe state out of it. You can be your infinite self, okay? Doesn't matter. But this is like what we're saying is that your primary purpose is to stay tapped in, and your secondary purpose is to act, right? So when a mistake happens or when you're going through life, you want to look at it from a physical level. What are the systems I have to create and so on and so forth? But you also want to look at it from a spiritual level. How can I not resist? How can I manifest more positive energy? What's going to happen over time is you're going to open up, like they said, the vine. You're going to really open up a channel, okay? And what's going to happen is you're going to hit a point where you have so much energy. You have so much energy. You're going to have so much creativity. You're going to have so much higher awareness. And you want to make more cash? You'll do it. But, and by the way, you'll do it with ease. It will be very, very easy. It will be the easiest thing you ever did. I'll explain why a little bit more in a minute. But you're not going to resonate with the grain-fed steak, okay? You're not going to resonate with, creating some kind of like technological control grid to destroy freedom or things like that. You're not going to resonate with that. Learn to look in the eyes of the people who do these things. I never want to bash anybody, but this is just well known across the board. Go look up the founder of Theranos and look at the bug eyes. And notice that look of the bug eyes among many people that have that level of power and control. There is a bug-eyed look. Please go do this. Okay? Please go do it. You want to be able to look in people's eyes. You've got to be able to look in people's eyes and see where they're coming from. I'm training you on this now. How tapped in are they? And what are they tapped into? What happens when they become the equivalent of that person, like almost like in the metaphors, getting what they want, getting what they want, getting what they want, getting what they want? Okay, go and actually look at this. Look, I don't know that woman personally. May have many other sides, so I don't want to bash her. But I guess I'm just making the point that go look at, recognize those bug eyes. Anybody ever see another big famous person like that with those exact same eyes?
What's the company?
So you'll see it, you'll know it. You have to understand, if you're completely tapped into high vibe, your eyes will be very, very steady. And if you're completely tapped into low vibe, your eyes will be very, very steady. When you're tapped into high vibe, you will be deeply congruent and aligned and convincing and powerful. But you want to know another way that you can be deeply aligned and convincing and powerful? You want to know another way? Completely, utterly consumed in low vibe. People that are completely and utterly consumed by low vibe also get that certainty. I used to watch friends of mine, and they would actually sort of follow along with the path that I was on, and you'd see them kind of fluctuating in their eyes. They would get more confident, less confident, more confident, less confident. You'd see this, right? And what would happen is you'd see them kind of reaching and trying to get in that creative state, that giving state, but it just got too hard. It just got too hard. And so what would happen is they would give up. They'd capitulate. Remember I talked about yesterday not capitulating? They'd capitulate. And they'd go into the kind of win-lose paradigm. And you'd actually watch them get more confident. People that are completely consumed in negativity are incredibly confident, incredibly aligned in their thoughts, words, and actions, incredibly convincing. But the big telltale sign, here's the telltale sign. You'll see it in the shark-like eyes. You'll see it in their maneuvering, in the way that you can see how they're looking at the world, and they're seeing it as a threat and as competition. They also typically have addiction to frame control. I hope that all of you know what frame control is from my years of teaching it. They have addiction to frame control. Okay, remember the competitive versus collaborative state? They have addiction to frame control. They don't understand the art of non-resistance. They are always needing to control the frame. You'll see the things they go back to. You'll see the things that they find funny. You'll see the things that energize them. You'll see people actively getting energized from trashing other people. Okay, you'll see people you'll see them talking about their enemies. They're like, we're destroying them. Yo, we're destroying them. We're destroying them, fools. Destroying them. Ha! And you'll see them getting energy off that. Looking at other people mocking them, and they're like, ha, 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 ha. You'll see it, right? And it's feeding them. It's giving them energy. So they've given in. They've capitulated. They've given in. Remember we said the fruit hasn't ripened yet? They're eating the unripened fruit. But that fruit poisons them because it poisons their discernment and poisons and toxifies their connection to their core essence. So it can't grow. They're in a flywheel. It's poisoning them. They don't get it. So they're taking the fruit prematurely, okay? That's like the deal with the devil. They've made the deal with the devil to get present. We all crave to be emotionally centered. We all crave to know who we are, right? What do we crave? First one? Louder. Louder. And what's the second one?
Knowing who we are.
It's getting late. Second one. Again. Right? So we want to know who you are because you live in this weird thing of like, where am I? What is this place? Who am I beyond all this, right? I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. Maybe I'm the person better than them. Yeah. Dopamine, stimulus. Well, you know, you got to be like that, right? A strong ego's great. I don't want to be apathetic. I don't want to be one of those lazy people. Then I wouldn't have the energy. If I didn't have my ego, I wouldn't have the energy. They don't have energy. I mean, they have some, but it's not the cleanest fuel. And what happens is that they're burning dirty, dirty, dirty fuel at a high level. And that's why, as a simple cartoonish analogy, when somebody goes over to the dark side in Star Wars, what happens to lines in their face? They start aging prematurely. They're like, bring on the dirty fuel. They're eating it, and it's actually aging them. It's running them down. And later what you're going to see is people in this mode will go into absolute mind and ego identification and absolute sick derangement. And this is why power corrupts. They go into a sick, 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 sick derangement. And power, absolute power, will corrupt absolutely. This is why we want non-centralization. This is why the direction that things are going in tech is bound to fail. So, okay, because that's what power does. It puts you in that metaverse zone where there's no pain. You're getting what you want, and you get darker and darker and sicker and more deranged. This is why we have supposed to have things like a democracy and things like that. Okay, it's meant to decentralize power, even though it has its own host of problems. Like, you know, you never see China spending 6 months arguing over a fence, right? We only do that here. You know, we only do that here. And there's a lot of great reasons for it, and I get that, and it's not as simple as that. I know, but I'm just making the point. So, from a mind-identified state, as you're, you know, disconnected from God, as you're disconnected from the vine, as you get what you want, it begins to twist and warp the mind, and you're consuming more and more dirty fuel. Now, what is the name of the program that I started teaching you yesterday? What I call it? Endless motivation, endless energy, learning to gain energy from work. What this speech has been intending to show you is both a larger context for why it is that you're doing what you're doing, but I'm also showing you how to get the cleanest fuel. Okay? So in that speech in the Bible about I am the vine, and you know, if you're not connected to me, the work that you do will kind of come to dust, it will get messed up. That's because what happens is that work that is done typically through that dirty, nasty fuel typically feeds a dark system. And that dark system carries what you would kind of call like a karmic debt to it. I know this. I'll tell you how I know. Because I built things from that space, and I'm 42 years old, and I've watched these things grow, and I've watched them fall. Okay? I've been in relationships where I'm dating multiple people, and you know, I'm telling myself like, oh, ha, 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 you know, they're, you know, I'm a super pimp, and like, you know, they're just trying to get my attention all the time, and yada, 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 and you know, stuff like that. And you know, I've got all this swag, whatever, right? But you're seeing that it's actually putting low vibration in the other person, which then makes them chase me, so that I think like, oh, like alpha beta thing, and you know, I'm thinking that in that mental model and having no intended harm. But later, you know, you see them get very upset and things like that, and how it hurt them, and then it comes back and it hurts you. You know, I watched Julian and what he built, and coming from a very deeply egoic space, and where that came from, myself included. What I've seen is every single thing that I've built coming from that space has been destroyed. It grows and it's destroyed. I've seen this again and again and again and again. And look, there'd be counterexamples. You know, Rockefeller built the Rockefeller Tower in New York or whatever else, right? So there's counterexamples of beautiful buildings and the Egyptian pyramids that were created by slave work and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that it's like as simple as that. But when you look at the overarching system and overarching energy that that's feeding into, it's not feeding anything that's truly healthy. And so what winds up happening is your work, your legacy comes to dust. Your work and your legacy comes to dust. And through your work, you burn yourself down. And through your work, you prematurely age yourself. And through your work, you come to be deranged. And through your work, you snuff out your soul. So it's one of these things where this is very, very abstract. We've got to really, really pull back. Remember I said things in low vibration, they feel good on the front end, right? So I was saying, and bring it back to this, that in an expanded state, love, friendship, art, nature energize you. Okay, so when I'm creating content, I'll often go deep in the mountains in Montana. You know, I'm in a cabin in Montana. I did this all the last several years. In a cabin in Montana. And I'm creating something. You're going to see a lot of this work coming out eventually. And I'm creating something. And it's like nature is speaking to you. Nature is speaking to you. And you allow your mind to clear. And in that clarity, you're broadening your perspective and creating great works. Works that will stand the test of time. But what happens is that when you're in pain body and you're traumatized, what do we know about somebody who's maybe deeply, deeply, deeply traumatized? What can they get energy from? Might just be drugs. Might just be victim consciousness. Might just be apathy. Might just be heroin. Okay, so heroin, it's like this very, very dense kind of like that, right? So if you're open, you're getting energized by the process, energized by adding value, energized by expansion, energized by nature, love, friendship, art. Active creation, why? Pointless. Why is the pointlessness so important? Why? Coming from total abundance. The pointlessness is the key because it's coming from total abundance. It's coming from absolute fulfillment. It's coming from completion. So from completion, from absolute completion, the creator of the universe. What have you created from non-completion compared to the creator of the universe? Go look at the galaxy sometime. Go to Google, YouTube or something, social media, and look at the galaxy. Put in context that this entire planet is like barely a grain of sand compared to the galaxy. And you think that because you built your Amazon funnel to make some dough, got some poontang, that you're like the man? You the man? You're the man. Yeah. Okay? So it's one of these things. Imagine creation from total abundance. Imagine creation from total fulfillment. Look, I see this night in and night out in bars and clubs. Getting in state, coming from abundance. Energy emanating out. Nights where every approach worked. Night where I had my choice of whatever. Night where I just, it's unstoppable. You know, you'll see this in transcendent athletes, like at times LeBron James, at times Tom Brady. Did you guys ever see LeBron James come back down from 3-1 against the Golden State Warriors? Yeah. I cried and cried and cried when I saw that. Did you guys see Kobe Bryant score 60 points on his final game? Did you guys ever see Tom Brady come down from the greatest deficit against the Falcons? You ever see this? These are transcendent performances that you need to watch. Transcendent. You need to watch this. This is divine energy coming through. And these are flawed human beings that have all sorts of views and behaviors that are not perfect. And as do none of us. But you'll see transcendence. Okay, watch Kobe go for 60. Watch him. Go watch. Body banged up. Injured beyond belief. Final game. Plays almost every minute. Misses, I think, his first 5 shots. LeBron James losing down 3-1. No one's ever come back from that in the finals. Against the winningest team ever in the regular season. Nobody can come back from that. Nobody. Tom Brady down by the greatest deficit. And he just comes back and he comes back and he comes back and he comes back because he's let go. And the other team starts to want it and starts to need it because they're so close. And it's when you just let go, that's when the energy starts coming through. It's from absolute fulfillment, absolute abundance. So when you're contracted, you know, you need certain things. You need, maybe it's fast food. Maybe it's highly stimulating entertainment because you've been contracted, so it's like the filter has been shrunk. The ultimate contraction is hard drugs. The ultimate contraction could be a victim ego. Where what you're doing is you're taking the fruit so far before it's ripened, and you're taking this unripe fruit, and you're going, and you're just eating it. But as you're eating it, what is it doing to you? What's it doing? Poison. It's poisoning you. And you come to resonate with poison. So as you're resonating deeper and deeper into poison, that's all that you can eat. There's nothing else that you can eat. So what happens from there is you now resonate with poison, and you are poison, and you put out poison, and you consume poison. Okay? So what does it mean to wait? Okay? What does it mean to allow the fruit to ripen? What is that? Allowing the fruit to ripen at a simple pragmatic level, very simple and pragmatic, means that, you just sit here and there's just, and allow there to be no point. Allow there to be no point. This is the difference between doing and being. Doing and being. Allow there to be no point. Allow your mind to become still. Allow yourself not to identify with the ego. You have an ego, gives you great indicators. It's not bad. But you don't need to identify with it and think it is you. What do they teach us in the Eastern philosophy? You're the witnessing consciousness beyond the thoughts. The thoughts are an autopilot, guys. Be the witness behind it. Allow them to slow. Feel the sense of completion. You're not God, but you have that channel to God. And not like ego, like, I have a channel to God. Okay, not that. Okay, that's really big ego, right? But you can channel that. It's in the, say the word complete. Total. Fulfillment. Deep. Fulfillment. Total abundance. Total abundance. Love. Friendship. Creation. Art. Nature. Expansion. Light. Love. Expansion. Lightness. Playfulness. Dance. Joy. Laughter. Right? Come back to these things. Allow yourself to come back to these things. Allow this energy to inhabit your body. Watch what begins to happen to your awareness. What is it doing in your body? What is it doing the energy in your body? Is it maybe clearing the cortisol in your body? Is it maybe expanding your awareness? Now, here's what's going to happen from there as you do this. What happens at this point is that now you're not poop eating anymore, okay? So now what's happening as you're doing this is your mind is able to have single-pointed focus. Say the word single-pointed focus.
Single-pointed focus.
Again.
Single-pointed focus.
Again.
Single-pointed focus.
Again.
Single-pointed focus.
Excellent. So the reason why you don't get de-energized as easily is because most of you, be real, you know it's true. Most of us in this room, as we're taking action, what we're doing is we've got like all this kind of, it's like we got all this trauma, right? The trauma, it's very real. And we're kind of trying to hold it down like a beach ball, right? Hold down the trauma like a beach ball. Hold it down, hold it down, hold it down, hold it down, right? What's that doing is you're holding down trauma like a beach ball. Pressure. It's burning energy. It's burning mental capital. It's burning focus, right? Because you know how this is. You go to get to work, you go to get to task, and you can't concentrate. You go to get to work, you go to get to task, and you can't focus because your mind is filled with trauma. Then, in addition to the trauma that runs like a refrigerator hum permanently at a low level, you also have ego. And you're like, what do they think of me? I'm victimized. I'm cool. And this is just running, right? Then you're also overwhelmed. Like, another great thing that connects you to presence? Food fasting. You ever done food fasting? Yes. Right? And again, it's the denial. That's why it's spiritual. Okay? It's the denial. It's that sort of low-level pain that you accept and don't resist. Right? So what winds up happening is all of these energies, the ego running, the trauma running, all of these various energies such as endless mental chatter, endless autopilot thinking, endless distraction. You know another big one? Feeling disconnected, and because you're disconnected, you feel disempowered because you're kind of in a derp state, right? You're kind of like, it's like as if you've been on caffeine for a month and you didn't get your caffeine, right? You can't focus on anything that difficult. And so what happens is that from that state, then what happens is that you need a dopamine spike. You ever have it where you're trying to get to work and then you just start looking at like a TikTok or something because you need to like snap yourself awake? You ever do that? Yeah. Okay, so that's because you're disconnected, right? What I'm trying to do in this room is I'm teaching you both at the level of intellect, but what I'm also doing is an active meditation, in case you guys aren't aware of that. Okay, so I'm teaching you in the intellect, but I'm also doing an active meditation in this room. You guys are unaware of that, but can you feel it? Yes. Okay, so I'm putting you in a different state. I'm putting you in a, now some people can receive it and some can't. Okay, that's okay if you can't, don't worry about it. Remember yesterday we went very pragmatic. I'm gonna do more pragmatic tonight. But I'm just making the point that I'm teaching at another level for people that are able to absorb it. Now, by the way, let me show you something. Is there anybody in this room right now who is like, yesterday was really on point and really practical, and today it's just too abstract, I can't let this in? And don't be ashamed of it, put your hand up, there's gonna be a few. Anybody feeling that way? Don't be afraid to stand out, it's brave to say that. So you're feeling a bit of that, okay?
I don't say it's bad, it's just like, it's abstract.
Yeah, it's abstract. Yep. So what that is that what I've got to do, okay, as a communicator, here's what I'm doing, okay? Let me show you a bit of what I'm doing. I'm putting ego bait here, and wasn't able to get through to you yet, but I'm putting ego bait here, and like that, right? And so say that I tell you, you want the stuff, you want the transaction, and I say if you want the transaction, you'll get it more effectively by getting present. Okay, if I say that to you. Then what I'm doing is I'm using the energy of the ego, and I'm aikitoing it. Okay, so it's like, want the stuff, want the stuff, want the stuff, just get present, get in the moment. You could be like Tom Brady against the Falcons, guys. Yeah, you're gonna be the man, okay? And you're like, oh, and then I go, boom, like that, okay? Yeah, I've done this for years. I'll have guys with freaking sick-ass deranged parasites on them, and I'll work on them. I've got videos of this, and I'm like, boom, and they wake up and they cry, like when I'm reading the Bible, because they wake up. Okay, what happens is when you really wake up, okay, when you really wake up to that level of light, what it is that you remove the blinders, okay? Because it's like, if I stare right at that, it hurts, right? I need to look, and I shouldn't look at that, that would be a bad idea. But that much spiritual light, our bodies can't always handle it yet. And so we need the blinders. Remember when I was talking about the filter, right? You can't let things in? That's actually a blinder, okay? It's a blinder. Think of it like you're a child of God, and you, as a thought experiment, and you came to this world to have a temper tantrum against your dad. Okay, you're like, Daddy, I hate you. I hate you, Daddy. I'm running away. So you run away, right? But the beauty of Source is so beautiful. But you're like, I am not going back. I am mad, and I am different, and I am beautiful, and I'm a motherfucking man. Okay? So what you're trying to be is that little puddle on the side of the stream, right? Separateness. The cancer cell. You are the cancer cell. But you're also more than that. You have a greater capacity than that. And you can remerge. So the point is you're doing that. And so you're being pulled back because the light is so beautiful that you're being pulled back. And you're like, crap talk, drugs, social media, and you're being like pulled, you're like, no, no. Okay? Ego, fast food, no, right? And you're trying to keep yourself actually asleep, okay? You're trying to keep yourself asleep. Look, guys, how do I know this? I've helped many people become multimillionaires. I've helped many people smash it socially. I've helped many people become famous. I've helped many people that run huge businesses make a lot more. And what you'll see consistently is self-sabotage. Life just gets too beautiful. You all think you're like, man, if I had that cash, I'd bring the girl out to the spa, to a show, dinner, back to the mansion. I do that all the time. You want to know what always happens when I do that? 80% of days I have. You want to know what happens? By the time you're back at the mansion, you've had the best day, they haven't got their fix of pain for the day because they're used to their day having pain. And there's so much light in that day that by the time they go back, they start having random crying fits because they're drug addicts. They're not getting the drug. What is the crying? It's pain. What is the crying? It's separateness, right? I am the unique little side puddle thing, and I am crying now. Yeah, but you just lived a better life than 99.9% of the planet. So what? It's not about the money, you know. Well, how about this? You spend $4K on today's date. I'll be the crier. Can we trade? No. It doesn't even make any sense, right? But what happens is that life gets so good, life gets so easy that your mind can't process it. Your mind can't process it. Because if you got back to that single-pointed focus, repeat that after me, single-pointed focus. If you went back to the single-pointed focus, life would get so easy and you'd produce so many results. Here's why. I call this concept endless motivation. What would happen is you wouldn't be burning energy holding down your ego to stay focused, right? You wouldn't be burning energy needing little TikToks or whatever it is of the day in order to spike your dopamine, right? You wouldn't need that anymore. You wouldn't need crappy food to stay focused. You wouldn't need to feel better than other people. You wouldn't be stuck in your mind. None of that would happen. You wouldn't be needing to be reaching for energy. I call it endless motivation. You wouldn't be needing to reach for motivation. People say, oh, if you were complete, you wouldn't act. That's not true. From a space of completion, the cup runneth over. It is, okay? God is complete. Did God just go take a permanent nap? What is being created? So when you engage with that, it's not a point of like, oh, well, you know, my ego my ego is satiated and my body is satiated, so I'm lazy now. What happens when you do this is you will have so much energy that when you're sitting there at home not doing something, now everybody needs rest, everybody needs a spa day, everybody needs to chill out sometimes. But generally when you've replenished and managed the temple well and you've fed into yourself properly, what will begin, proactive recovery we call that, what will begin to happen is you'll have so much energy that you have a hard time staying still. And you'll want to create. You will want to wake people up. You will want to add to life. You'll want to go do that. Do you remember yesterday when I started by saying, don't give me some crap that you want to be a billionaire? That, the hidden other component of that was that I don't want you just making purely ego-based goals. Find something that allows you to connect more deeply with flow and adding to life. When you get to the end of your life, you'll see the value of that as far as what you've accomplished and how you feel about what it is that you did. You're going to see a huge, huge difference here. So what's happening is that as you're opening up and expanding, imagine if you knew that you're being energized by just adding value. If you know that you're being energized by just adding value, how much energy will you have? If you know that you're being energized by adding love, being a great friend, by creating, how much energy are you going to have? Limitless. Endless motivation. Endless motivation. Who can compete with you? But at that point, it doesn't matter. Like what I said earlier, I call people, I try to help them. It doesn't matter. Okay, we call that collaboration versus competition. People in the ego hate that. Remember, does anybody remember I had a video called When You Stop Competing, You Win? Okay, there's little subtle dynamics that happen from a collaborative frame, right? You can have somebody clown you, and then what happens is that you try to like fight back and clown them back, or they clown you, and you just give them a little nod and an eyebrow raise. You know, they clown you, and you're like, right? You do that, and it actually communicates more than if you're trying to, right? It's called the power of non-doing. What is the main book, the main spiritual text that talks about the power of non-doing? You should know this. You want to know what pop culture's got you doing? It's got you ignoring the classics. The Great Consequence has got you ignoring the classics. What is it again? I heard it.
Tao Te Ching.
What? The Tao Te Ching. Who here's read it? Put your hands up. Good. How many times? Who here's read it more than 10 times? Put your hands up.
I don't know.
What are you doing, guys? What are you doing? These books have to be read and reread and reread and reread and reread and reread and reread because these books is the deeper underlying truth. Maybe not perfect, but there's a deeper underlying truth in there. So it's not just about reading it. Like, you remember I said like the statue of David? You know, like why would you go back? Why would you reread the Tao Te Ching? Why? It's not about saying that you read it. It's about allowing it to work on you, to transform you. So it's one of these things where you've got to keep coming back to that. There's the power of non-doing. Remember, that idea of completion, what it's doing is it's replenishing energy at a high level, and then when you take action, it's that kind of Aikido type of action, okay? It's that Aikido type of action. So what's happening is that you're doing less, but the quality of that action is so high fidelity that it does more. And then what is adding does not have karmic debt. Say the word non-karmic debt. I'm telling you, you guys will hear this, you're younger, and you've seen what I've accomplished. You know, you've seen a lot of my real life social interaction footage or the fat crib, and you're going like, cool, bro. Non-karmic debt, Owen, great. You don't know what I've suffered. You don't know the dumb things that I've done. You don't know the negative things that I've done and how that's come back to bite me in the butt brutally. You don't know that you could have all those things and still be miserable, and it just doesn't seem real to you. But I promise you, you will see. As life goes on, you will very much see the brutal, brutal truth of the actions that you take and the consequences that it bears out. There are so many things where I was just caught up in my ego or caught up in a taker's paradigm, and at first I get a ton on the front end, and I see later what I get on the back end, and it is so painful, okay? It is painful. I have experienced pain on a level that for like months at a time, I am seething in pain. And, you know, my legs are like, you know, my legs are just kind of like, so much vicious gasoline in my body, you know, my legs are just like shaking and twitching, and, you know, I'm waking up in the middle of the night, you know, things like that. Why? Because I just take a lot of action in life, right? And so I do a lot of good stuff and a lot of dumb stuff. And those things that I did that are dumb, you know, you will get that back. You will get that back like a sledgehammer, taking your skull and boom, and blowing it apart. You will feel pain like you don't even understand. You don't even need me to tell you. You're going to go find this out. You will see. Okay? That's what aging is, okay? Aging will bring about surrender because you'll try things this way, this way, this way, this way, and you'll go down these different paths, and it's an absolute total learning lesson. You'll see. And it's not about shaming I'm not shaming anybody. I still do dumb things. I'm not shaming anybody, okay? It's not about shame. You don't need to shame anybody. You don't need to. You know, like in like religion, they're very shameful sometimes. You don't need to. Life will bear that fruit for you. So you want to build something that lasts, okay? You want to bear fruit that will last. So it's about the following. Clean energy that adds energy as you work. Now, by the way, eventually the temple does wear down, right? Like if I'm gaining energy from this, but at some point tonight, my energy will start to go down. I need to go to bed, right? You know, tomorrow I'll probably go to sauna, cold plunge, you know, maybe go to Aries Ancient Bath, something. You know my point here, right? So there's that component of it, right? So, you know, the temple does wear down, but there's a different quality to it because what happens is while you need food, while you need sleep, while you need to, you know, de-inflame, right? Like speeches like this, like it inflames your body, okay? You know, I use a lot of Eastern herbs, et cetera, et cetera. What happens though is that you're burning down your body at a slower pace. Okay, so you might have even seen in this speech, I started off more tired, ramp up, my voice is booming, it's easy, it's effortless. I'm not using vocal technique. Do you guys understand that? Yeah. This is not vocal technique. You cannot do what I'm doing by moving the larynx in a certain way, okay? It's energetic, okay? So there's great value in those techniques as well, by the way. Great value. But this is just a different kind of thing as well. Different element to it. So what happens is that my energy will peak. Now, as I've kept going, it will come down a little bit as well. You know, the inflammation will kick in, needing some food, needing replenishment, et cetera, et cetera. So that will still kick in. Still going to kick in, still going to happen. But it's at a completely different pace. Then you go into proactive recovery, you recharge, the energy comes back, and again, you're just radiant and you're booming. And again, you know, the unfortunate part of this is that a lot of people can't even relate to it. Like people will look at you like you're nuts. They're like, and you get this weird thing where people say to you, they go, well, that's just you. That's just you. Not everyone can be like that. You just have like this thing, Owen. Like you just have this thing. Not everyone can be locked in at that level. Yes, they can. That's like saying you have a messy room and you're like, you're just a clean room guy. You just have the clean room. No, it's learnable, it's replicable, it's learnable, replicable, reproducible. You can study it, no different than the social skill stuff, no different than wealth building. You can study this stuff. It's replicable. Any one of you could be up here doing exactly what I'm doing here. Look at how many incredible public speakers I've trained. What do you think I'm teaching them, among other things? What am I teaching them? Why can I can take just about anybody, and if they're willing to put in the work and they're willing to focus and lock in, this stuff is so utterly reproducible. So, thank you. So it's utterly reproducible. You can reproduce any result that I'm talking about in here. So these were things that I learned Just to be real with you, not proud of this. Running a counterculture business, we have been boom across the head. Okay? Like in ways that if you knew, you'll feel bad. And I hit points where I had to decide, what is the hill I'm going to die on here? You know, am I going to keep going or am I going to stop? And I kept going where I think most people would stop. And so I had to get very, very, very efficient with my energy, my productivity, and producing results in levels that if you guys knew, it would scare you. And so I had to keep evolving, iterating, and digging deeper to find the energy to go on. Okay? I had to evolve, iterate, dig deeper. I don't want to get too deep on this, but if you look me up, any type of ego that I would have and gaining energy from ego, boom, right? Even as far back as like 2005, most popular book of the year, last couple hundred pages. Imagine me as a young man, young, lightly autistic, trying to get a little swag going, and boom, walking down the street thinking that people are glaring at you, want to punch you in the face. Look what happened to us in 2014. And there's things that impacted us that you wouldn't even imagine. And lateral thinking and hustle and work. Imagine running a seminars business and also using bars and clubs and having lockdown happen. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine what it's like to have a firstborn autistic son when you yourself grew up lightly autistic and you want to protect your children from that. And I've had many, many other things that, you know, these are just a couple of them. I've had friends die, and I've had many, many other things that have really, a lot of betrayal, and a lot of other things that would just like really, really shut me down, okay? And to be honest with you, while on one side I could describe my life and it would sound super pimp and super baller and something that you'd want to achieve, the things that happened for me to get there created enough misery for me that none of it was worth it. And I've seen so many other of my contemporaries who made a lot of money, and you know, I see where they're at and how they're spiritually snuffed out. Many of them on drugs. Why do you think some ultra-rich person gets on drugs and hookers? Because they're getting what they want over and over and over, and then they lose their soul. They lose willpower. They lose their will. They lose their discernment. They just want more. It's a sad thing. Again, I've thrown huge parties Hollywood Hills for years. So what winds up happening is you start to see over time that the work itself forces you to evolve, and it becomes its own active meditation. That's what I'm talking about in endless motivation. What I'm saying is you want to get in this kind of point where you've got it to where the work itself is difficult enough and challenging enough that you are forced to iterate both on the level of systems and processes. Say that again. Systems. Yeah. Louder.
Systems and processes.
But you're also iterating internally. Say the word iterating internally.
Iterating internally.
Again.
Iterating internally.
Again.
Iterating internally.
Okay. So what I always say is that the most important question in all personal growth is what else? Say what else?
What else?
Again.
What else?
Again.
What else?
Again.
What
Again.
What else?
Good. So in other words, every single time that something's coming up, what I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself, what else? What else could I be, what other thought could I be having? What other thing could I be focusing on? What other high value thing could I be doing? So the basic thing in what else is that you want to be saying to yourself, and this is the basic premise that I always give. In reality, if you just picked the 5 or 10 things that were most important in your life and had single pointed focus, say single pointed focus.
Single pointed focus.
If you just did those, imagine what your life would look like. Let me give a couple examples. Imagine that you just studied sales and marketing. A lot of the great works by people like Dan Kennedy, John Carlton, contemporary teachers like Alex Hormozy, and others. Imagine that you just stopped wasting your time and studied that for 10 hours a day. What kind of prosperity would you have? If you understand what you're giving up to not do that, okay? Every minute that you spend not doing that, that's quite an advertisement for these people I'm giving that. Every minute, right? But, okay? They're like, thanks, man. Testimonials today. But I did that, okay? So I've done it to where I sat there studying the great marketers, the great legacy-oriented marketers. And you want to know something? They're not on TikTok. that I'm aware of, okay? They're not short form. It's boring. Takes focus. And then what I used to do was I'd sit there looking at long form sales ads and I'd retype them out for hours. I actually got an oceanfront apartment in Hawaii so I could sit there on the balcony, and I did this for 3 years. And I studied and studied and studied long form marketing, okay? And for those of you in my mentoring courses, I will show you everything about that, okay? I've done videos that are like 12 minutes, bring in mid-six figures, 7 figures. Imagine recording a 12-minute video and you bring in $1 million. So when you're looking at this garbage, when you're looking at this trash, when you're eating this poop, it's not just that you're eating the poop. It's that you could have spent that time doing something else, right? If you eat fried foods, is the damage just the fried foods? No. What else is the damage?
What you could have been eating. All the other stuff.
It's not just the damage. What else are you missing? Okay, there's a guy called Medical Medium. He talks about this. For every piece of garbage meal you eat, you could have had wild blueberries or, whatever else you want to say, right? So you're missing the nutrition that you could have got. You're not just burning down time, you're missing the nutrition. Here's why you can't focus on Dan Kennedy for 12 hours. Because you don't resonate with it. It's too beautiful. It's too awesome. I can bring up Dan Kennedy content, because I have my own marketing content. I teach that in my mentoring. My iterations of it, my understandings of it, my vernacular of it. And I can bring this up to the front, and I can start teaching that to you. But if I were to deviate to gossip and trash, you would want to hear the gossip and trash over the marketing content. You will find that when you read something truly high paradigm, something truly transformational, you will see again and again and again and again and again that your mind deviates off of it. It doesn't resonate with it. You will notice that when you look at time-wasting things, that your mind resonates with it very, very deeply. You'll see this. Your mind will resonate with gossip, trash, time-wasting. The fundamental core truth of what you're resonating with is anything that burns down your time, anything that takes away from opportunity costs, anything that takes away from what else. Okay? So, like at a basic level, you want to know what I think is the most important skill in all of life, but I'll kind of make a funny one here for you. The ability to walk through a park and smile. Because I don't think 99% of people plus can walk through a park and smile. I just don't. Every breakup that I've ever had is because the person that I was dating couldn't walk through a park and smile. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is, if you're going to go make all this cash and go on a beautiful date together, you've got to be able to enjoy that. How many times have I been out at a beautiful ski resort? Out in Vail, Jackson Hole, in Utah, Snowbird or Alta, sitting there, and I've got somebody out with me, and it's just so beautiful. Sitting out in Snowbird, Utah, Little Cottonwood Canyon, mist of snow. Like not even snow hitting you in the eye, okay? Like this mist of sprinkling snow. The sun percolating through the mist. Perfect weather. It's crisp, but warm at the same time because the sun's hitting your skin. Perfect powder. Mountain views. God is shining through. That act alone of single-pointed focus, of letting that energy in, do you know what kind of cascade that leads to? Simple. You go to the park, you shut up, you smile, you let in the energy. You've now expanded your mind. It infuses you with present energy, which therefore infuses you with single-minded focus. Now you go to work on the marketing stuff, and it can actually resonate with you, okay? So, a couple simple examples here. You ever had it where you maybe had a breakup, and you're kind of traumatized? And you know that you should be looking at something highly productive, but you just can't do it. Maybe you even start staring at their social media that's further traumatizing you. You can't do it. Something that would help you, you can't do it. That is the problem with trauma. When we get traumatized, we go into a low vibe state and we can't look at the things that would actually help us. I'm going to tell you something right now. Almost none of you in here can spend 10 hours a day focusing on marketing and sales. All you'd have to do is focus on it for a couple years, and you would have the ability to metaphorically, not literally, but metaphorically print money. And then if you did that, look at the years you've wasted not doing that. And if you did that, rather than being, look at these webs of problems that you have. I don't have the money for this. I want to do that. This person said this about me, which if you had $1 gazillion, you wouldn't care. This person dumped me. This other thing happened. But if you just put your focus into learning a hard skill like marketing, what would happen? Your whole life would be different. But that beautiful life of prosperity, what would it mirror? What would it resonate here on earth? It would mirror the abundance of that which is beyond. It would be a heaven on earth. Now, there's problems in that I mentioned, power corrupts, all that, but you just catch my general point here, okay? Likewise, imagine that instead of just crushing over the one other person that you're obsessed with, you said, you know what? I want to go out and I want to meet a ton of people and I want to learn the skill of socializing. I want the skill. I don't want the person, I want the skill. How many of you have ever been at a point where you want your ex back or somebody else who you like so bad that you fixate on them? That's not love. That's not love. I've done it too. That's not love. Love is unattached. Love is giving. Love is abundant. The idea of going back out and meeting a bunch of people and learning the skill would put you in so much abundance that your system can't resonate with it. Your system can only resonate with the poop of scarcity. And so you loop and loop and loop and loop on the person, feeling like, please, sir, may I have some more? Please, sir, may I have my gruel? Can you love me? I'm disconnected from source, but if you would be with me and intimate with me and validate me, I'd know who I am. It is a core, fundamental disconnection from source. Look, I believe in relationships, lifelong partnerships, children, and family. So you should be able to be with one person. But, if you choose, but that addiction to the other person is an addiction to scarcity. That inability to go into a bar or club and just meet everybody is an addiction to scarcity. It mirrors the energy of heaven too much, and no, daddy, no, I'm not gonna be rich, daddy. I'm not gonna have all these people like me, daddy. I'm not gonna be happy and fulfilled. No, no. That's what you're doing. You don't realize that you're doing it. It's actually easy to be successful. You have to understand, being successful is the easiest thing in the world. It's your most natural state. But here's what it is. There's these 5 or 10 things that if you just focus on it, put your focus on them, you do it. But understand, high paradigm information cannot be absorbed unless you have moved into a high paradigm, because you can't resonate with it. The average person would read the Tao Te Ching and they would be so opposed to it and they cannot process it. They are blind to it. Absolutely blind. If I put this on a video, this video will have low views. This video will have people very angry. This video will be misunderstood. This video will be cut out of context. This video will be decontextualized, framed as abstract, unpractical. From people with 5% the energy, not only of myself, but even of any of you in this room just receiving it. They have 5% of the energy, but they'll decontextualize it, okay? Because the mind isn't ready to process it. And then even me saying that, they'll hear that part and they'll go, and now he's justifying it with this thing, and they'll do all that thing. Okay, they'll warp it and warp it and warp it and warp it, and they believe it. And you think like, no, but they get it, right? You wanna know what I learned from the years of posting real life interaction footage? Stop and think about that. What problems did I bring on my life to post all that real life interaction footage? And I knew going in, laid out on a silver platter. Laid out on a silver platter. I thought in my mind that the people who didn't get this stuff would see that and immediately be inspired. I believed that. I thought when I created Blueprint Decoded, people would be immediately inspired to change. I thought that. I thought, how could you not be? How could you see real life examples of me doing this and not be immediately inspired to go do it? I couldn't understand why people wouldn't do it. And you know what was funny? You'd see like, say, negative comments underneath like videos where I would describe it. Because earlier on I never had real life interaction. And I would read those negative comments and I said, I get it, I understand. You need to see it, I get it. I wouldn't have thought this was real either. I get it. So I'm going to go get this for you. I'm going to do whatever it takes to put myself in whatever line of problems to get this for you. Because I want the world to have this. And did it change the world? No. They were given the information and they denied it. Even in me saying this, someone in that mode will deny it and view me as this like crazed person, like, and then I gave it, you know, and they're gonna think that, especially my off-the-wall demeanor. And they won't believe it. That's okay, because they're not in a paradigm to receive it. High-level information. Let's look at simple stuff. Making money, social skills, basic systems and processes, building systems. Things like nutrition and vitality are simple. If instead of eating 9 million different processed foods, you stuck to the basics of the healthiest foods, what would happen in your life? How many more years would you live if you did that? So you have something called lifespan. Say the word lifespan.
Lifespan.
Say the word lifespan.
Lifespan.
Again.
Lifespan.
Again.
Lifespan.
Next one. Health span. Say that. Again. Again. Health span. So it's not just lifespan, it's health span. How many of us are going to go into older age with a low health span? Getting sick. It's got to be hard. You know what's hard? Addiction to processed, sickening foods, pounding yourself with it, and then the vicious, brutal last 20 years of your life. Vicious. Do you know how many people are on like statins and this and, you know, all these things? 15 different pills. That's hard. But that difficulty mirrors the inner state of consciousness. So this is where, okay, you know this thing of like The Secret and law of attraction, all this, and then you get these people in Los Angeles like, I need to think it, and I manifest a parking spot. I'm manifesting at higher and higher levels. The big one for me is because I'm a low-level public figure, they say they manifested me. Okay, I'm like the manifestation target. You know, they're like, I knew that if I didn't work and I just manifested you, I could just steal your following and be on your stage and not work. And they actually believe it. I get all the time. People are like, so I demand to work with you. And I'm like, I'll help you, but you didn't manifest nothing, okay? Or you met me on the street, you got a photo, it's not gonna help you. Hey bro, you get my photo all you want. You could have literally just like cut and paste with a little editor my photo beside you. It's done nothing for your life, bro. Putting in work does something for life. Meeting me on the street, getting a photo is not it could be a mildly inspiring moment, but it's not gonna do anything. You know what's gonna do something? Studying marketing, studying sales. Try looking at your purpose, looking at what you're good at. A lot of the stuff that we talked about yesterday, drilling down on what it is that you're good at, drilling down on where your lanes are, drilling down on your systems, drilling down on efficiency, drilling down on the energy that you have, drilling down on your hustle. That's what makes results. Drilling down on your subjective processing of life is what's gonna make results. Putting in the time. When I'm here doing a seminar, for example, you wanna know what the money is? There's no way that I can make more money in the seminar room from a straight financial perspective than I can from being at home working and building systems. So what's the money for me? The growth, flow, adding value, and this. I'm coming at this as if I'm getting paid. This is me getting paid. You see that? You'll rarely see a human that will give more of themselves in a speech, but it's not that I'm unique. Oh, gives themselves. No, it's not that. It's that their whole perspective is wrong. They don't see it. They're doing it for a transaction. They don't get it that the process itself is the value. Let's drill down on that. What can you buy with money that would be more fun than I'm having right now? Nothing. In the world, nothing. Okay? Maybe Pokemon Go game or something? Okay? Nothing. Okay? What is it worth to be able to be in front of a crowd and talk about Pokemon Go? Right? It's priceless. Okay? It's priceless. You guys remember my old seminars like with Luke and we'd be clowning and I'd be crowd surfing? Some things money can't buy. That night out at the club where you smash it. Think about this, guys. Y'all, everybody here has had that night out at the club where you just smash it. Money can't buy that. That significant other that really loves you for real, Money can't buy that. You see what I'm saying? Money can't buy that. That beautiful moment in nature out. You know, I was recently in Washington State in Olympic National Park, okay? And there's this place called Solduke Falls. And it's like an ancient, old-growth forest up in the Northwest. And you know the Northwest, it rains like, is it 9 or 10 months a year, right? But in those couple months that it gets warm out, you know, can you imagine that? It's like God's country, right? And I'm sitting there with my children and my family, and we're hiking into this waterfall through this like mystical kind of quasi-rainforest. And there's a deer right in front of us on the trail, walking in front of us on the trail with my children there skipping after it. Money can't, I mean, I guess you pay for it with money, but the point is you can drive there, okay? And you know, money can't buy that. You know what I mean? Helping a friend and watching them thrive, having a child and watching them thrive. You know, money helps facilitate these experiences, but at a core level, the core essence of the value of these experiences, money can't buy it. So, going back to single-pointed focus then. Okay, so we're covering a lot of ground here, a lot of breadth here. So, coming back to single-pointed focus. The ability to raise your vibe, the ability to raise your paradigm means that that level of information can take root. So as I'm speaking to all of you, what I'm aiming to do is I'm aiming to raise your vibe as we're speaking together. And then as I'm doing this, what I'm doing is I'm looking to open your receptivity, and then I'm looking to jam down as much high paradigm information as I can, okay? So the idea of personal growth, what you're really doing at a core level is you're getting in a group of people that actually want to grow, okay? To be honest with you, the best groups are paid groups, because in a free event, I mean, you know, people are not quite as serious, but I think that any of you in here that are here this long are serious. Am I right? Yeah. Okay, so the idea of personal growth, the art form, it's an art form really, right? It's a craft and it's an art form. And you know, this guru shtick thing, right? And basically what it is that I'm trying to feed you with energy. Open up the receptivity so the mind's not so tight. I'm trying to, you know the little tight things? I'm trying to open the mind. So if I can open your mind, then I can go, right, and I can shoot in the paradigms, okay? So a paradigm that I'm trying to hit you with here, I'm trying to impregnate you with, is the idea, who knew that would happen when you came to this event? So the idea that I'm trying to impregnate into you is this idea that in effect what you're, you know, the single pointed focus that you get from knowing who you are, not through ego, from stabilizing your emotions, your basic foundation, but not through stimulation. But when you can stabilize the mind, and when you can know who you are as beyond the mind, then what happens is that when I say to you, get calm, get present, and spend 10 hours a day study marketing, what winds up happening is that your mind is actually able to see these higher level paradigms, because high levels of marketing require this huge volume of give and take, right? So it's like, you know, you'll see me, I'm making these enormous videos, but then I'm doing these major, major launches. Okay, so I do 7-figure launches all the time, like on the reg. But I'm also going, vroom, and I'm giving these big chunks of value, right? So it's that ability to give, but also to receive. It's creating an energetic flow. Your mind has to be ready for that. Now here's another nuance, okay? There's 2 types of people that can do this. One of them is people at a very high level. The other, can anybody guess? Low. Sociopaths. And that's why a lot of sociopaths are CEOs. What they do is they stabilize their emotions using sociopathy. And many sociopaths that you'll see are very, very good at receiving. Many internet marketers, for example, have that bug-eyed look that we talked about earlier. And so what happens is that they're very, very good takers. But many of these people, I'm going to describe them. Please follow. If you can hear this stuff, it's going to blow your mind, okay? So a lot of these marketers that I've learned from and people that I've seen, they are such takers at a core level. They don't even understand who I am or what what giving even is. They have no idea. So let me give an example. So some of the great marketers, they're basically mercenaries. Say the word mercenary. Mercenary. Okay, so for example, some great marketers, they will wait for somebody like me to build a list, okay? And then they'll say, listen, you've got this big list because you've been giving. Now, when you give, you attract people to come and want to be around you, right? All of you here, you're here because I've been giving, so you want to receive more of it, right? It's like, you want to be near the sun, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not the sun, but that's, as a metaphor. So going from there, you give. Mercenary type marketers are people who all day, rather than thinking about how to give more, they think about how to reap. Say the word reap. Reap. So what happens is that they will sit there and they will basically find every single nuance to extract value out of an audience, out of a list, et cetera, okay? And so it's the kind of thing where if you meet people like this, you can get incredible tips from them about how to actually receive more. But it's one of these things where, I've had it where, I have friends in all different areas. I have friends that are like, they're into, giving, they're spiritual, all that. And then I have friends that are just straight takers. And I do that to be around multiple different people. And what happens is that the takers are like, why are you around those spiritual, stupid people? And they hate that I'm near them. And then the spiritual people are like, why are you near those takers? They're bad, right? Because it's tribal. And they don't understand the idea of like having a council of different advisors from different walks of life. You want to have left-wing friends, right-wing friends, all that. So what happens is that you'll be at this point where somebody who's like that, I've done collaborations with them, and they'll immediately go into sales. And I say, listen, the way that I think that you should do this with my audience, why don't you add value? And then later, when you've added something, then if somebody likes what they're getting and they want more, then you can go to point of sale. And I've literally seen it with some of these guys that are multimillionaires. They're like, what do you mean? Like at a core essence level, they don't know what giving is. So what a lot of them do is they find lists of these kind of like warm-hearted giving people, and they say, look, let me come in and I'll monetize your list for you. So a lot of really high-level marketers are really great at monetizing lists, but they don't actually have anything to teach. All that they're good at teaching is how to extract value. Now, by the way, that has huge value because you should know how to extract value, but it's about giving and receiving, okay? So imagine it like this. Let me give a few examples to make this real for you. Eben Pagan, a mentor of mine, what he said was, if you give 80% and only receive 20%, please follow, the people who give, the people that engage in these kind of 80-20 deals, where they always want the 80% for themselves and to only give 20, they only get one exchange at most, right? They're like, I'm gonna get the 80% and you only get 20. They do that, okay? But if you're the person who gives and gives and gives and gives, then you get 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Okay? So for example, for me doing years of free videos, what are some things that I got? Free videos, right? All those mercenary marketer type people think I'm nuts. What did I get though? Okay, I got cash. Great. 8-figure business. Awesome. What else?
Lifelong clients.
Lifelong supporters. What else? Legacy, which is great. What else? Practice public speaking. Now, how about this? I walk down the street. I've been in clubs in LA. I can get in almost any club because I just walk by the line and people go, Owen, and they let me in. Celebrity clients. People who want to help me. Many people who want to help me. Other experts who come in and give me free expert consult. By me doing many videos on social media, it also allowed me to be more creative. It allowed me to create art at a higher level. So people see things one-dimensionally, but they're not seeing it from a broadened perspective of where giving helps them. Okay? So think about this within dating, right? Some people, what they have is they are a giver. They give good. That's like the chump, right? The simp or the chump, right? Give. They don't get respect. Let me buy you dinner, let me do all that stuff, right? Then that would be like level 1. Then the next level I would call a creep. They want to take. Maybe they're grabby. Maybe they're too forward. That's a creep. Then you have somebody at a good level. How would you combine the two of those to be at a good level? If the first level is give, if the second level is take, what would the third level be? You go out to the bar, open, funny, engaging, add value, et cetera, right? Then, rather than being the chump who's like, okay, bye, okay, thanks, bye, okay, thanks, bye, okay? Instead, what he does is he says, trade Instagram, or I got a party going on, or after party, or let's go eat, or blah, 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 blah. Okay, right? So there's a give and take. Let's go to an even higher level. What if you actually started doing container events, right? Let's go to level 4 now. That was level 3, level 4. So you actually start doing parties, right? And you do these dope parties, and you invite a lot of people there. Maybe you invite 200 or 300 people there. Maybe 50, maybe 20. So now you're adding value to 300 people, okay? Well, when you're the one running the party, what's your dating life gonna look like? Totally insane, totally awesome. But guess what? You just entertained 300 people, maybe only 20 of them like you. Wait a minute, that's not fair. That's not fair. You had to entertain 200 people for 20 to like you? But again, you had 20 people like you. And like is a euphemism. It's a 4-letter word euphemism. So what I'm saying is, who lives like that? This is crazy. I do parties, I'd have a different date every day for the next 2 months from one party. Okay? When Google says, here, take the search engine, it's all free. Take YouTube, it's all free. But they make all this money on the data. There's a lot of problems there. But you know my point, right? So it's the idea of adding value. There's an ongoing give and take that's there, okay? But let me ask you a question. How much value do you personally have to add? Okay, add value, yeah. I'm a good guy, yeah, add value. Well, how do you add value? What are some ways of adding value? What are some simple ways that you can do when you start? And then what are some more advanced ways? What would you say? Simple ways. What's the easy? What could anybody do now to add value?
Laugh or feel good.
Laugh or feel good. Make a connection for them. Be a connector. Amazing answers. What else? Volunteer for something. I think that's actually very good. Yes.
Good energy.
Good energy. Yes. Big one, be the ultimate protege. Believe it or not, experts want to convey their knowledge to other people and help them, but they got to believe that you're a star, right? Because when you're an expert, all these people are like, I want to be your protege, all this stuff, but they don't actually put in the hustle, and it drives you crazy. They just want to feel pandered to. It's super weird and ill. So show that you're actually a go-getter. So anybody from the start can be a great learner, a great listener, have great energy, great charisma, make people laugh, and be a connector. You can do that, boom, right away. Okay? Now, by the way, let's look at some mid-level skills that you can learn. Sales copywriting. Let me tell you something. 3 years at a high-level college compared to 3 years of high-level sales copywriting? Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Okay? The difference is dramatic. You know what Dan Kennedy says? He says, you know what his job is? Make cash. Okay? What do? Make money. What's your job? Money. What's your job? Money. Okay? When you understand marketing at a high level, what that means is that you can go to Chain's Flower Shop and bank money. Right? What's your job? Money maker. Rainmaker. Say the word rainmaker.
Rainmaker.
Okay, so at a mid-level, high value skill, rainmaker. Why is not every one of you in this room already not a rainmaker? I'm being honest with you. Okay? Imagine the value that you can add to somebody if they know that you understand sales and marketing at a high level. Just the sheer value you can add to them, right? So someone's like, I'm a good guy. I like to add value. What's your added value? Smiles, right? Great. No, that actually is great. I'm not even kidding. But there's other levels to this, right? If you don't understand marketing, it drives me crazy because you'll sit there, it's like addiction to poverty. It's this poverty addiction. You see this in the victim culture we live in, right? Oh, victim, that. Oh, so it's like, did you ever study marketing? No. How did the system stop you from studying marketing? Right? It's like, as they're smoking a blunt or eating a Big Mac, right? So it's like, where's the basic accountability? But the problem is, there is actually a real victimization going on. The real victimization is that they've been shoved into a low paradigm by the system itself that's traumatized them. Greases gets to laziness, greases gets to egoism and all that, right? So what happens is that they can't even resonate with some of that high level. You can hand them the book. You can hand them the video. Won't watch it. They won't watch it. They can't. They can't. Look, I'm going to be mean, even my own sales team. I made a free course. Any of you guys see that free course I put out? Put your hands up if you've seen the free course I put out. Okay, how many of you actually watched the whole thing? Hands up. Not bad, but more than I thought that would be. But it's hard for me to even get my own sales team to watch the free course where so many of our lead base comes from. And I know that I've got to push them. You want to know why I know? Because verbally out of their mouth, I want to make more money. But I know human nature. And I know that watching that, which would help them to convert highly, would give too much prosperity, and they may not be ready for that level of prosperity. And you're hearing this like, that's crazy. What? But, maybe they're too busy to spend the 3 hours watching it. What else do you have to do with 3 hours that would not be more valuable than studying that? To know who it is that you're talking to and what they've experienced. What else? Can't do it. Can't watch it. Mind distracts. Mind goes into inner chatter. Mind goes into dopamine spike. Mind goes into distraction. Mind goes into diversion. Mind goes into wasting time. Right? Does that. Can't do it. I give you guys the best content in the world. Can't watch it. Meditation. You already know how to do it. Can't do it. Okay? Paradigm. Energy level that you're at. You want to know another one? Not just marketing. Think about this. Think about the heaven on earth when you become a rainmaker. You know another one? Social skills. What would it add to you to be able to do public speaking like this? Off the cuff. Boom. Practical seminar like yesterday. Abstract seminar like today. Boom. How could you represent yourself? Represent your brand. Be an ambassador for your brand. How could you teach other people? Maybe make a marketing agency, help other people. Look at all the value that you could add to that. Like we said, being a connector, the ability to go out anytime, anywhere and meet people. How much value could you add? But it doesn't matter, and I can sit there and I can show real life interaction and video after video and program after program, and I can show you everything. Doesn't matter. Think of all the dumb crap you looked at rather than looking at that. This is why I say it's like the 5 or 10 things that matter. Now, that's at a high mid-level. You want to know who makes the most cash? Any guesses? The people that own the systems. Because systems are hard to build. They're very buildable, but they're hard to build. And so the study of the architecture of systems is also a major area. Name, all of you in this room, name a couple books that talks about how to architect systems.
That one.
7 Habits is amazing, but it's not about architecting systems so much. It's about architecting personal systems. I'm talking means, having a larger system, having a business.
Systems Thinking by Marcus P. Dawson.
Fantastic. Any of you ever heard of that? That's principles. Similar to 7 Habits is highly effective people. I'm talking systems.
Opportunity, Evan Pagan.
Good. Eben's a mentor, is one of my original mentors. So, systems building. So let's get this straight then. Let's get this straight. Wait, everybody, let's acknowledge this. Shame walk time, okay? Every single one of you in here knows who the Kardashians is. None of you in here have read a book about building systems. Okay? So everybody in here knows the shit. Everybody in here knows the crap. But nobody in here has read a book on building systems. But that's where the money's at. How much of your life have you spent complaining? How much of your life have you spent feeling sorry for yourself? How much of your life have you spent gossiping? How much of your life have you spent trash? Do you understand what trash talking is at a core? It's not what it looks like. Is trash talking that bad? No, it's like smoking a joint. Not that bad for you. Like mildly bad. What does trash talking do at its core? What is it actually? You've got to understand this. You've got to understand what gossip and trash talk is. You must understand. You have to understand. Pull back. Pull back. It's you getting dopamine by feeling better than another person. It's you getting energy by low vibration crap, but it's also non-productive. It's designed to make your mind non-productive. Every second you're spending trash talking someone, you could have been spending learning social skills, marketing, spiritual growth, systems building. You could have spent learning about nutrition. You could have spent reading a book about nutrition. You could have read every nutrition book and seen the cross view of different ideas and tried different ways to build energy, vitality, immunity, focus in your mind. What you put in your mouth affects how much focus you have in the mind. But you didn't do it. Why? Why? Couldn't resonate with it. The system greases the skids of ego, selfishness, laziness. Diversion. Say the word diversion. Diversion. Okay, the media, mainstream media, does have good elements in it. I'm not going to cast away the whole mainstream media. There's good reporters. But a big part of it is designed to waste your time from the actual issues. These most statistically relevant issues, okay? The most statistically relevant issues are rarely covered in the media, okay? The food that you get presented to you is meant to divert your attention from the real food. The entertainment that you're getting is meant to divert your attention away from the things that are truly expanding that would be entertaining. The crap talking is meant to divert your attention away from building real value. I can make a 2-hour video about how to completely change your life, or I can make a video about Jada Pinkett Smith. And the Jada Pinkett Smith video, and I'm not criticizing this. Look, there's always time to have a little bit of fun, right? But I'm just making the point that if that's primarily what you're doing, then, what level are you actually operating on? You're operating on a level that you're burning down time. When people want to see the video about Jada Pinkett Smith over the one about systems building, there's 2 main reasons. One is they lack the concentration, but the other is they can't resonate with the beauty of life. And they will sit there, victim, playing this role of how kicked down in life they are, and looping on that with not taking the basic action to change their lives. The reason why, okay, let's really dumb this down. Your typical state of consciousness is this kind of like derpy thing, and then dopamine spike, and then derpy, dopamine spike. It's going like this, right? And then it's also not super happy or expansive or present. So in the same way, when you try to meditate, what happens usually? Why is meditation hard to initially build? Why?
You start to think about different things.
Yeah, your brain's like, well, what about this thing? You start to do that, right? You can't just take the basic 20 minutes. You can't connect to God. You can't connect to your infinite self. You can't even handle the point. Okay, here's the funny thing. You can't handle the pointlessness of it, and yet in the process of being unable to meditate, what you're actually doing is training your mind to be spaced out. So that actual 20 minutes of pointlessness that would connect you to your infinite self, that would connect you to your true identity, that would connect you to your natural state of flow, you can't actually do it. You're stuck. You can't actually do it. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. Can't do it. So what winds up happening is that this thing that appears pointless would actually energize you and allow you to expand. The ability to go to a park and just enjoy it would allow what? What do I call it? Single? What? Okay, the ability to go to a park and just enjoy it would give the single-pointed focus so that you could just study marketing. Okay, imagine your life now. Just study marketing. Just study nutrition. Just study sales. Just study inner growth, spiritual growth, whatever that is for you, whatever your beliefs are, right? Just study some kind of base level skill. Just study social skills. What if you just put 98% of your focus on those things? What if your life basically just looked like you ate the right foods, you added value to others, you went out and socialized regularly, kept getting sharper and sharper, maybe you're hitting the gym, traveling out to beautiful places, reading the most educational books, mastering the components of your business. What if you just did that? But you can't. And the problem is, what you haven't done is you haven't looked at the stakes. Do you remember I said in the seminar yesterday where I got you to look at how good your life could get or bad it could get? But the point is, yesterday we looked at the stakes. So we looked at how good life could get or how bad life could get if you do this. So if you fail to take the call to action that I'm giving to you here, here's what's going to happen. Most likely, most of you will live your lives through a digital screen. You will spend your life eating the gruel that the elites give to you. Your mind will stay shrunk. Your core essence will be snuffed out. And your life will just be this kind of blah, okay? Blah. So what I would urge you to do, and this has been the subject matter of Endless Motivation here this weekend, what I would urge you to do, urgently get you to do, desperately get you to do, is I would honestly look at how different your life could be if you can just let this land, okay? Now the basic formula to it is, begin to realize what the gruel is, begin to realize what's snuffing you out, begin to realize what's feeding low vibration, and say no. Just say the word no. No. Again. No. Again. No. In other words, reject that system. Say the word reject it. Reject it. Okay, you have to say no and you have to reject it. You have to categorically say no. Now you have to do this in spite of the fact that most people that you see are not rejecting it and that you look weird. And so I'm not telling you that you have to reject it. What I'm saying is, if in this moment what I'm saying is resonating with you in your critical opinion, not my opinion. This isn't the go from the mainstream to Owen's opinion seminar, okay? Might feel that way, but it's not, even if it feels that way. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take you on a sober version of a psychedelic odyssey. I'm trying to cover a lot of terrain here. I'm trying to stretch your mind a little bit. I'm like a personal trainer taking your mind on a workout. And so I'm trying to present your mind with ideas that you yourself are recommended and welcome to accept or reject. Even if you rejected 80% of what we talked about here today, but you got something, that would make me happy. And so, and I only want you to accept what is being said here if in your critical judgment is correct. While I may know in my heart of hearts that it's largely correct, it's more important to me that even if you thought it's wrong, in your heart of hearts, that you would reject what I'm saying, because even though I think it was a mistake to reject what I'm saying, I'd rather that you do that and maintain the habit of thinking for yourself. I'd still rather that you do that, because more important than my cool info is you having the habit of critical thinking. Maybe later you'll come back to it and see it in a different way, but you've got to critically think. Learn from experts, learn from the best mentors, get the best mentors. I have many mentors. I spend sometimes $500,000 a year on mentors, and you can see how that's helped my life. But at the same time, end of the day, I can have, my vocal coach taught, Michael Jackson, Prince, Eminem. Doesn't matter. I'm going to choose for myself if I want to take his advice. Don't care. Guy completely changed my life, Roger Love. But doesn't matter. Because it's at the end of the day, I'm still an adult. I still have to choose what I'm going to take or reject, okay? And Roger would agree with that. He'd be like, well, I know I'm right, but, you got to think, right? That's the even higher priority. So the first step is you've got to reject the system. Reject the gruel. Reject contraction. Next step. Engage in activities that raise your paradigm, that raise your vibe, that raise your energy. And it doesn't have to be this pop where you just become enlightened or something. It can just be 1% a year or something like that. I mean, that's probably too slow. But, but it could be 8% a year. In a decade, you're 80% better. 12 years, you're, 100% better-ish. So it could be like that. And then what you would do is you continue down that path. Keep going. And take on some kind of larger life project that challenges you. Remember I said, if you get locked out of your house or whatever, it challenges you, right? So every single moment, take that as a chance to be in non-resistance. And do that continually and on and on and on. Get your mind to a point that you can resonate with heaven on earth. Get your mind to a point where you can resonate with the highest level of information. And then the last step is to seek out that information and put it into practice. The highest level people I know are very, very, very clear in what they want out of life. And so if you put something at them, if it doesn't resonate with where they're going, they tune it out. Do you remember I said that when someone lacks discernment and they're an ego, if you don't feed their ego, they tune it out? And that's kind of coming from a parasitic consciousness. There's also the good version. What's the good version of that? It's that if it's not adding beauty, if it's not adding expansion, if it's not adding to your soul, if it's not adding to your perception of the world being more accurate and beautiful and deep and powerful, then you don't want it. Okay? You don't want it. You know what life is really all about? Many different things I'd say, but a big one. You know when I read the biblical passages and it brings me to tears? What am I showing you when I'm doing that? What I'm showing you, and I'm trying to show you firsthand, okay, the truth is this. Sometimes the light of something is so beautiful, it's so bright, you have to train yourself to truly see it. Okay? Say the word, the gift of consciousness.
The gift of consciousness.
Right? But how often do you even wake up and are like, I have the gift of consciousness? Like, how often do you even wake up and think about that? Probably very, very rarely. The gift of consciousness. You have this gift, right? So it's one of these things where the reason why you can't bring yourself to tears when you see something truly beautiful is because you have the sunglasses on. The skill set of opening the mind and seeing true beauty, it's a skill that actually has to be cultivated. It's a real skill. It's an actual skill like shooting a basketball, okay? It's a real skill. So something that you could even try right now is look at your hands, okay? Just for a second. This is a kind of a spiritual weird thing that people do and gurus do this, okay? Look at the little lines in the hands. Look at where there's like maybe some color of, blood in the hand. Look at the lines. Look at the fingerprints. Look at the little hairs on the back of your hand. Look at the nails and the lines in the nails. We live in such an abstract form of consciousness that even looking at your arm closely is weird because we live in this kind of weird cartoonification consciousness, right? This is a big reason I tell people, drive the whole country. Don't fly it. What happens when you fly it? You go in the tube, and then you get to this other ego place. Then you go in the tube, and then you get to this other ego place. It's actually driving the country. I drove most of the country in the past couple of years, not most, but huge, huge amounts. And the best parts in my view. So what happened is, that's subjective, but just my opinion. So it's this thing where seeing the real world, it gets you out of this kind of weird cartoonification reality, okay? See as much of the real world as you can, all right? So always be striving to get out of this weird cartoon of the mind. Over and 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 over, okay? Get out of the cartoon of the mind. So the skill of being able to look at something truly beautiful and to cry, you have to understand this crap being fed to you, like a Rolex watch. Okay, a Rolex watch, which is great. Watches are beautiful. I love watches. They're made with great intention, actually, and presence. But you understand the point, like, we think we want a Rolex watch. What is more valuable, a Rolex watch or a leaf? It's actually the leaf. In the marketplace, the leaf won't sell for anything because there's so much of it, right? The watch does. But if you don't have the ability to really look at a leaf and take it in, what the Rolex watch does is it feeds the ego character. It's disconnecting you more deeply from reality, okay? Even things like sex. A lot of guys are like, ooh, if I have sex, like my life's gonna be good. I don't even know if they know how to truly enjoy a woman, if I'm being honest with you. A lot of them don't. A lot of guys don't. Or they're such little takers, they're just like, and it gives a weird energy to the girl. So it's one of these things where the ability to stare at true beauty and be brought to tears, all that it means is this. It means that you're looking at real beauty of life, okay, of the gift of creation. Say the word gift of creation, which you all have, by the way. And it means that you're actually letting the magnitude of it land. If you can't be brought to tears at the gift of creation, it means that you're too afraid. It means that you have it could be like a male ego thing, that you look like a wimp, but it's also that you can't actually let it in, which means that you can't allow it to energize you, which means you can't allow it to heal you, which means you can't allow it to clean out trauma, which means you can't allow it to clean up your focus. So it's one of these things where you want to also train yourself to go and see real beauty and to really, really, really let it in, okay? To be brought to tears. I once, and I'm not even kidding you, watched a marketing seminar and I cried and cried and cried and cried. I did. And I'll tell you why. Because I saw in that marketing seminar, the way that it was laid out, a way to bring true prosperity to my children, to my team, to allow me to have more funds for my business, to be able to afford to put on a free event for you. I saw that. I saw beauty in that. I saw the years of iteration that went into that understanding of marketing. I could see that as clear as day and the prosperity that that would bring. So what happens is that we can't look at some of these incredible, powerful self-development topics because we have the sunglasses on. And so we get constantly distracted. So we always want to be cultivating that core essence. And like I said, it either happens when somebody becomes a freaking psycho, or it tends to happen when somebody goes in the opposite direction and they actually elevate their soul. So it's going to happen one of two ways. But what happens is that you're offered the ability to become a dark little troll, Anakin Skywalker character. You're off. And do you remember Anakin Skywalker at the end of the prequels when he's like, he's talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's like, I don't believe you. You're trying to hurt me. I think you're the bad one. You remember that? That was a great depiction of his loss of discernment that he got to take on power. And then his body being, burned up alive as the karma coming back and hitting him. But what is the end of that story? What's the end of this story of Anakin Skywalker? Redemption. So everybody in here has that opportunity for redemption. You've been part of the sixth system. You've been plugged in the sixth system. You've been a part of it. You've added to it. But you have a choice to reject it at any given point and say no, and to create a heaven on earth in many ways. You have a choice to do that, to create true prosperity. True prosperity. Truly being at the cause of your life, not at the effect. You can really do this. You can really add a lot of value to other people. And perhaps most importantly, I think that the greatest form of human existence is not only adding value, but also receiving at a high level. And by receiving, it doesn't just mean stuff, although that too, but it means to be able to receive the gift of creation, to understand the depth of that. So train yourself to go into nature, train yourself to give to people, train yourself to add value, and allow your mind to become more stabilized and grounded and rooted in the energy of creation, the energy of life. And then what's going to wind up happening from there is you're going to be able to look at this higher paradigm content, and you're going to be able to really take it on board. You'll be able to actually let it land. You will actually let the content land. You'll actually let these basic practical things land. And once you leave the seminar, you're going to see, because after you've seen this, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it, okay? It's like, when you first learn about, say, congruence tests in like dating, and then, and you see what that is, and then you can't unsee it. You just know what that is now. So you've been exposed to this. And you're going to go back into regular life, and you're going to see yourself derping. You're going to see other people derping. You're going to see other people eating that premature fruit. You're going to see other people poisoning themselves. You're going to see yourself out of alignment. You're going to see yourself not having gratitude. That's why they say gratitude is one of the highest vibe things, gratitude and giving. Why is it so high vibe? Forgiveness. Why is it so high vibe, right? Coming from the infinite self, as if you have everything. Total abundance, and what outflows from there, okay? So, right, not completion in terms of the ego being completed and the body having what it wants, which makes you lazy and complacent, but completion in your soul, which then the cup runneth over. It's a key distinction. So you're going to see this. And what I've tried to show you here is what I would personally believe in my view, in my ego, the single most advanced motivational seminar ever delivered. Okay? I believe I've given you that here tonight. And that's very egotistical. But I've studied this stuff for 2 decades. I've never laid it out like this. Okay? And so if you actually listen to what I'm saying, I'm trying to show you something that could allow you to have transcendent power, transcendent results, and to go and be a global changer, a global change agent. Okay, I wish this for my children. My children will have great, incredible opportunity in front of them to be huge difference makers, to be leaders. And that's a path that they'll have in front of them by being around this kind of thing. But they'll have to choose to take that path or not. I'll be dead, and I'll be able to see them, but they won't be able to see me. And that'll be a path that they can choose. But the truth is, we are all, in my view, God's children. And so any single one of us has the ability to take that path, okay, to take the calling, to take that path, to bear much fruit. We have the ability to do that. Every single one in you here has the ability to do that, and to expand, and to wake up, and to live a really remarkable, really incredible life, and to add to life, okay? So every single one of you in here has the capacity to do that. And what you could do, truly, you have no idea. Your potential, human beings, we are not some crap floating turd for AI. We are something divine. We're something special. We are something transcendent. We're something beautiful. And we're going to the stars. We have a great destiny in front of us. We're at a crossroads, but we have a great destiny. And just like I said about my children, you can choose to take that calling of your great destiny and your role within that great destiny, or you can deny the call. You can fall back asleep. But it'll be those specific individuals that reject that sixth system and embrace their destiny, embrace your destiny that will change the course of the world. So I want to thank you guys very much for going down this odyssey with me here. This is a beautiful experience. Thank you guys very much.